Hi everybody. I know it's a lot later in my day than normal. I hoped to catch a few of you that have found the other streams a little bit early or during your work day. So, following on from yesterday, I thought before we started actual lace making today, I would talk about the bobbins that I have. Because as you know, I am so annoyed with spangles, right? So here we have a spangled bobbin. Now, the bobbin itself is not a bad size, the spangle on this one's not as bad as some of the others, but we already know Liz doesn't like spangles. So next up is the bobbin I used to make the last square, which is the Honiton bobbin. As you can see, it's small, very small, and this thing weighs literally nothing. I swear if I blow on it, yeah, it moves, okay? It has zero weight to it, which of course means that as a whole, it'll run away and tangle and do things of its own free will, and a dog or person within 1,000 miles of it will annoy it. Then we have my favourite bobbin. As you can see, doesn't want to stay apart, but there you go. So my favourite bobbin is about the same size lengthwise as a spangled bobbin, but it is a chunky wooden bobbin, and this has many advantages. It's great for being used as an underhand bobbin. Now, what you have seen me doing so far usually is I will pick up a bobbin and put it down, pick up a bobbin and put it down. This isn't like an overhand method because your hand's over the top. The underhand bobbin, you hold them in your hands and you kind of do the magic, stress ball thing, and you twiddle them. And this is very good on a bolster pillow. Yeah, you can do it on a flat pillow, there's no reason why not. But obviously with the shape of a bolster pillow, by the time you've picked it up, it is sufficient distance from the pillow that you can go twiddly twiddly, and magically this happens. Now, the only potential downside, although I like them for the same reason, just to be really messed up in the head, is the size of the head of these bobbins, which is quite a bit. I mean, if you take the spangled bobbin and look, that's tiny because it's kind of a straight thing, whereas this has got a really quite large head. But this, when you're trying to roll them around in your hands, obviously you've got greater movement at the bottom than you do at the top, and getting them to roll around the larger head can be, it's not hard, but it's a little more of a challenge. Then comes the Danish bobbin. No, Honiton bobbin, I didn't ask you to move. There are bobbins underneath, which is why it's not a flat surface, obviously, because my work's underneath it. Pop you out the way there. The Danish bobbin. Now, the Danish bobbin is of similar kind of mind to my favourite bobbin, but it has a slimmer head. I mean, it's not tiny, but it has a slimmer head to it. It has a lot more weight than the Honiton or Midlands bobbin would by default, and generally is quite readily available, unlike my favourites. And then there are these bobbins. Now, I have no idea what to call these bobbins. I got them. These are steroid bobbins, for want of a better word. These obviously are, they're on the slightly bigger side, not a lot, but they're on the chunkier side of life, but they're also fairly straight and unshaped. So in future, this bobbin here, never again. My sanity is not good. These bobbins are awesome to get big piles of bobbins on your pillows, but the nightmare of how literally infinitely light they are, they literally do have zero weight, boils down to these three bobbins. And I have about 200 of each of all of these bobbins. Because anyone who is a crafter will understand with me that crafting is a form of kleptomania. You've got to have it all. If there is a new one, a new colour, a slightly different shape, a different brand, you want it. I also have this problem with notebooks. I'm not entirely sure why, because my handwriting is terrible, and so I don't write things down. But I have a kind of kleptomania for that too. So there are other types of bobbins. So some of the bobbins you can get, if you pick, say, this one, because it's kind of a more middle-sized bobbin, they have quite a thin, so you get, bear in mind I can't pronounce it, so you get some which look like they're called Finnish, which have, this stays fairly thin and then just has a big bulb on the bottom, because it does. There are then ones that are a bit like this, but have a knobble on the end. So there are lots of different types, and each come from different regions of the world, and each of the kind of bobbins around the world and the lace makings around the world seem to be related but not related. So there are many similarities, but there are also differences. And a lot of the European kind of lace tends to be more bolster cushion orientated style lace. The British seem to be in for strips. I haven't really looked a lot further than that. Obviously, I'm sure the Asian end of the world has its own variety of lace, but as I say, I've not looked at that yet. And I'm pretty sure that America took some with them because, well, they do a lot of it now. So I thought I would introduce you to the different types of bobbins and some of the trials and tribulations of said bobbins. These are obviously recently made. This is a brand new bobbin. These are quite nice. They're fairly cheap. I was looking on eBay today. The price, mind you, this one's plastic, but ignore the fact this one's plastic. On today, there were prices ranging from like 100 bobbins for £15 to £10 for one bobbin. Quite a few sort of like 3 for a tenner. No one wants an odd number of bobbins. Really, they don't. And so I found myself, the price of the bobbin obviously has to come into it, as, we're not all bottomless pits. We don't have Elon Musk plying bank accounts. We therefore cannot, buy gold encrusted, vessel virgin, hand wafted effects. We can't. We have to be practical. And my favourite bobbins are not cheap, just because they don't make them anymore. They haven't made them, I think, for nearly 40 years. And as a result of that, obviously, either people still love them and aren't letting go, or the ones that are on the market are only a handful because someone only bought a handful and maybe didn't really use them because they only had a handful. And so, because you can mix bobbins, nothing stops you mixing bobbins, because of course if you do the pick-up technique, you could not do the underhand wiggle with spangles. But, so for example, I could mix and put, say, the Danish bobbins, which are the currently cheapest and most readily available that I've seen, although best bought from Germany for some reason. And I got a big shoebox full of those last week. In preference. Hi Elizabeth, nice to see you again. Yeah, I'm kind of interested in, I think part of any craft is you start off interested in the craft. You want to make the thing or something that craft makes. So whether making tea towels, weaving, which frankly is the best thing to do with weaving in my humble opinion, having made I haven't done much weaving for the last year. Might be slightly apparent to those who follow me, but mainly because of the great disaster of Christmas before. But I find making tea towels, because you can do so much and call it a tea towel, it makes it really simple to plan that you're going to make tea towels. So you're going to make things of about 28 to 30 something inches long. You're going to make it usually some in the region of 20 to, in my case, 30 inches wide. But you now can do almost anything with the cloth in the middle. You can use a new technique. You could, as long as it doesn't have particularly any floats, you can do that. And some of it is it's less talked about in the weaving world as to where some of the techniques came from. You get to hear where, say, the looms generated from. So we often hear about I've got a Swedish style loom, or I've got but you don't really hear, oh, this technique is British. Whereas with lace making, all of the kind of methods of making lace are labelled very, rather kind of bluntly almost, of where they came from. So Bucks Point's lace is Buckinghamshire, Beds is Bedfordshire, Honiton is Honiton. It is quite a place orientated hobby. And some of the pillows, I do think maybe the shape of the pillow, the size even, was maybe a little bit more regional originally. But of course, now we're in a world where you can have a real-time conversation all the way around the world. Obviously, a lot of that is very easily lost, because you're no longer stuck with your region's supplies, your region's patterns, your region's idea, people in your region teaching you. We can all go on YouTube and, type in bobbin lace making and watch one of about 30 different people all teach you how to generically do lace bobbin mating. Now, some obviously do specialise in Honiton or Bucks Point. You don't tend to see quite so much of some of the others. And there are some interesting ones. So, in the concept of the net curtain for my window, there is one called, and it starts with an F, and it's not Finnish, but it's close. Flanders, that's the one. It's one called Flanders lace. Now, Flanders lace is more, you make small clumps of things and then kind of hold it together with ground stitch. Now, it's not quite that simple, but the ground stitch, instead of, as we know with what I've been doing here, she says, pulling her her cloth away. Oh, sweetie, I should eat that. If I have, everywhere a pin meets a spot is on my pattern, and everywhere a pin meets, I take one pair of bobbins, another pair of bobbins, I go fiddly, 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 pop, pin, fiddly, 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 done, right? With Flanders, it's 4 pairs of bobbins. Now, obviously, this makes a much denser lace, but it gives a much stronger and a more solid base. So it is. A lot of these things, though, the differences are quite small. So, for example, Milanese and Russian lace, which seem to be very, 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 very similar. You do cloth stitch. You do small section of cloth stitch, and so if this was a Milanese lace, you would be maybe going round the cloth stitch squares, and then you do form a joiny bit in the middle, and maybe a different style of joiny bit, and do another layer of cloth stitch. So it's the same stitches, it's just what you do with it. And obviously, to an extent, if you think, I designed this pattern, I put in this pattern the things that I like. So maybe Liz's lace is quite simple in terms of only a few stitches, it's very repetitive, but maybe somebody else's is the most complicated thing in the living history of the world. And, they have 12, 13 layers per corner and it radiates out like a star. Maybe that's their thing. And you're left sitting there going, I'm never going to remember to do that, even though, of course, you've got the pattern in front of you. But it can be complicated when it's a complicated pattern. So it is. I think there's a lot to learn in terms of history of where lace has been, because obviously, when I was investigating whether I would do squares or not, I looked into the Chantilly lace. Now, we've all heard of it, even if it's only the song, but Chantilly lace people came up with a method of joining lace such that the seams were invisible. Now, they were masters at it, which is why I am not trying it yet at this point. Because, why is it the first pin I picked up is properly bent? Let's try another one. Because I was going to start doing some lace making. Just want to make sure you can see. So, it is the... She says not finding the hole. There we go. There is a small bit of you that kind of says, why is it that there are so many similarities, yet they have very distinct names? There's kind of a book on everything. For those who are interested, there is a Flanders lace course, generally more available in America, I need to say, in that the course is about $90-something. And then, of course, you'd have to add postage to the UK, which makes it basically impossible. They do have a couple of other... it's right, I'm trying to straighten my loose pillow for you. They do have a couple of other things, but they do like a DVD-style tutorial. And it is something that you have to consider. Some people get to go to lace, to I know, a lace guild, or there's a tutor near them. Some of us don't, and I am quite hopeful that in the long run, more digital tutors will appear to share some of the other lace making types, because as I said, while you can find bucks and beds and Honiton, and even, although not a lot, nearly all of them are torchon, which is what this is based on. And as I said, the similarities and the differences are really quite minor, and if you're not a lace maker, so much of it is lost on you, even if the differences are explained. Some use not a 45-degree angle grid, but a lot of it is the placement of the pin, the type of ground that you use. So obviously with this one I do half stitch, pin, half stitch. Some of them you do whole stitch and pin, or half stitch and pin. You don't cover the pin afterwards. You don't make a bin sandwich. And so there is... But the difference is, even to look at, can be harder to spot, even if you have an idea of what you're looking at. So, I don't know, there definitely is an awful lot to learn, and it doesn't seem to be a subject where there is a good, strong source of go here, and, you can't necessarily go down your local library and say, find a big book called The History of Lace Making. There doesn't quite seem to be anything of the sort. Everyone kind of acts like their region invented it, and there is a book on their lace making, and that's it. There is no kind of that's wrong. Nope, I need to stick my head in. There we go. That should have been in there. That's better. So yes, it is. Mind you, that still looks wrong. Never mind. It just looks wrong. I'm not so convinced. I know I did do all the things that I was meant to do. I'm going to come do that. I have a dog trying to annoy me. Actually, I have a dog successfully annoying me. What am I talking about? She's most definitely succeeding in annoying me because it is trying to push me off the couch. Right, let me undo all of this. So, you should be coming down. I am actually going to pin you. No, brain cells. There. Rory, stop trying to push me off the couch. So, you're there. Now, you go that way. And you need another pin. I'm just going to say I sure had a pin a minute ago. I really do wonder why it is. I wonder if any of you also wear glasses. And every so often, the world is crystal clear. You look around, nothing is blurry. You know, if you've got terrible eyesight like I've had, blurry is most definitely noticeably blurry. It's not usually only a hair blurry, it's real blurry. But I've had this quite a few times in the last, I'm going to say 30 years now, where I've had a pair of glasses and looking around I can see individual leaves on a tree. I can, you know, and I'm quite happy that, you know, it's all crystal clear. But then I go to read, say, a road sign, and I realise that the road sign is not clear to me. The leaves further away seem clear. The cars seem clear. Everything seems clear, but words. Now, I know I'm dyslexic, and so that is a bigger issue, but it's not dyslexia, word blindness. It is physical. This is blurry. Now, I'm looking at these pins, and when I'm sitting back looking at my work, and it looks crystal clear. Every dot looks crystal clear. Every bobbin is crystal clear. The moment I want to stick a pin in that hole, can't see a thing. It's almost like the more I concentrate on it, the blurrier it is. Now, I do need new glasses, and why I need new glasses is really quite simple. Is the fact that for whatever reason, glasses can no longer be bought raw, for want of a better word. They have this amazing need to put coatings on everything. And for me, as someone who gets licked in the face by a dog, and I touch my glasses apparently all day looking at the state of them, I spend most of the day cleaning my glasses. And in cleaning my glasses, well, no matter how gentle and clean careful a cloth and all the stuff that they say, you know, use this microfiber extra soft, you know, kind of silk hand infused whatever it is, right? I end up with the coating coming off. And as a result of the coating coming off, which of course is nearly always in the field of vision, but it's never at the edge of your glasses, it's always near the middle, because that's the bit you end up cleaning the most, because, well, fat fingers and all the rest of it. Rory, there is no way you can... Come on then. we are insisting on coming up through like a 4-inch square to go back where we were sitting like seconds ago. And now he's squashed with his sister. Right. Twisted you. Off we go. So the coatings come off quite a lot on this pair of glasses, and well, it's not good for them. It's really not, and it's not good for your eyesight either, because they will arguably make it blurrier, because the coating, even though it is, you know, half an atom of not a lot, diffracts the light slightly, so it interferes with the clarity of the vision. It must interfere with the clarity of the vision. Surely, you know, logically it must. So really I should go and get a new pair of glasses, but I don't want to pay £1,000 for a pair of glasses when the actual, you know, strength and otherwiseness of the glasses on my face is perfectly acceptable. I don't really want to replace them. Because I don't. I do wish these spangles would not leap underneath the bobbin. I really do. So yes, so I hope everyone's okay today. I have tried changing a couple of settings on the stream. Ouch. And part of the reason for that is because I have noticed, I think as I mentioned yesterday, is that the recordings, even though they are recordings from what my end of what I'm trying to send out, not what necessarily makes it, after about 90 minutes, the sound slightly was garbling, or the video wouldn't move on. But if you clicked, kind of like skipping through, it would move. But if you didn't skip, it just stayed showing the same frame. So I'd be talking about something, and you'd be kind of going, "She's not moving. She hasn't moved for ages." And I had, it just wasn't showing you. And so I'm a little disappointed because obviously, I won't say it's expensive software because it's not, it's free. But it is the most well-known streaming software, and it's letting me down. Now, I will say at the moment we have 0 dropped frames. The other day it was up to 73% dropped frames. Now clearly that's just pants. So I don't know quite. And obviously, should it be dropping frames, I don't really know what to do about it because, well, I can't invent more bandwidth, and I can't, it's not like I've got other applications using the bandwidth because I live alone. So it's not like I can scream at the kids, "Will you stop?" or, ask a partner to stop downloading the internet or something. Because, well, it's not doing that. It's not a thing. And so, yes, should it start dropping frames? Nothing I can do about that. Maybe start and stop the stream, I guess, but it's not necessarily going to change anything. So, I don't know. I'm a little lost. I never, when I was streaming previously and I was streaming games, A, I had better internet, but B, I also didn't have anything that told me that there were drop frames. I wasn't keeping recordings particularly, so I didn't notice any issues, because obviously from my end, I look at a screen, I can see that there is a picture of me talking in the bottom corner, well, me-ish, and a picture of my lace thing, and I can see the lace bobbins moving around, and that is what the camera's picking up. I can't tell if that's being written to disk or not until afterwards, and I won't know. So let's say I streamed for 3 hours today, which will take it to quite late, but that's fine. Well, I won't know for 3 hours. In fact, I probably won't know for another 2 hours till after that, when it's uploaded to YouTube, and I've been skipping through it. So it does upset me slightly that the video kind of recording is letting me down, and it's not proving to be reliable. Oh look, it's come undone. Of course, it's come undone. It's day with a Y, isn't it? It's a bit long, actually. A bit far too long. There we go. Let's move you round there. Oh, it was 2 pins there. So, because I want it to be a good record of how we get to the end. And as, you know, this square could be the square, or one of the squares. We haven't decided yet. But at the same time, why does that look wrong? Just let me look at this. You're on the next two. No, it is the wrong one. It's because it's coming off the rose ground, I think, and the rose ground comes to a point, and obviously, in that sense, the point is higher up. Oh, that's good to hear. Thanks, Elizabeth. It will also help if if it does go wonky, please shout out, because obviously I can't tell. We did pretty well yesterday as well, on the grounds that we only had one spammer try and come in and ask me to buy viewers or something. So we got less spammers yesterday. But maybe they, maybe it logged in and went, "This is terrible. I'm not advertising for you. I don't want this. You're too terrible." But yes, so if I as I say, I did poke at it a bit. I got it to change a few settings, and very oddly, remember I think I mentioned yesterday that it was doing around 5 megasecond uploads. Well, it's doing 6 at the moment, and no drop frames, whereas it was doing 5 before. But that could be partly related. I really don't know. That one's slightly beyond me, I think. Well, it's beyond me at this time, anyway. So, but we shall see. We shall see. Hang on. Feeling 1, 2, 3, 4. No, that's right. I also got OBS to retest the streaming options, and it picked options. Didn't tell me what it had changed, of course, but it picked options. And so maybe today's better because it's picked some options. I also told it to go at 30 frames a second and not try for higher, even though obviously most people like 60. But I don't know. It seems a bit weird that it's so much happier, but if it's happier, it's happier, right? So, because I want it to, I do want people who drop by to at least be able to understand what I'm talking about, and for the stream to be watchable. I don't, otherwise it's a waste of everybody's time, isn't it? So. I also found a fat cushiony thing to sit on while streaming to help alleviate some of the dog pushing me off the couch scenario and sitting on the wooden edge of the couch. So hopefully that's good. My back's already complaining, but that's because I messed it up the other week. I'll probably do this for many weeks to come, so I ignore it. Probably should take some painkillers before I stream. That would be a good idea. So yes, today's plan, depending on how well I get going and how well we do with all of this is obviously I'm doing the cloth stitch bit across here. Then I will add some of these bobbins, but not all, down to about here. Maybe then do this bit and see how we go. But as it's already 8:20 at night and I've got work in the morning, there are limitations to which I should stay up and be crafty because, well, I've got work in the morning. And of course, I've got to pay for my craftiness somehow. So, best be awake for work in the morning. Sure my boss would appreciate that. Actually, what would be really scary is if I said that and someone goes, yes, I would. It turns out to be my boss. Not sure my boss would find themselves watching this stream, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. I've watched plenty of stream and someone's been talking about a game and someone pops up, I wrote this, and you're like, really? You know. So, stranger things have happened. In case you're wondering, there is a 2-layer pile of bobbins in this corner, so there are some of my bobbins, and underneath are more bobbins. This was to help get them out of the way so that I could do some work, but also as I add more bobbins, that there would be some space to add more bobbins. Definitely the organisation of bobbins is a lesser known skill. It's not one readily talked about, and it should be, frankly, because it's important. Pins. And yes, I could be stealing pins from further up the work, but then I'd have to uncover the pile of bobbins, so it's easier just to use new pins. Seriously, nothing sighs more than a dog who's slept all day. There we go. Getting somewhere. Right, so that is the end of that little section of cloth stitch, and those bobbins kind of become unnecessary for now. In fact, to assist them in not joining in, let's scrunch them up with a pin here to hold the threads out of the way. So, going to be working with those ones for a little bit. Oh, I need to move. Oh, there we go. I've got a slightly different lace table today. It's a slightly more amenable table, but at the same time, the dogs are not. And it is the dogs that maketh the backache, not the table or the lace making. What earth is going on with these bobbins? One of these bobbins has come, the loop knot at the top has come undone and is mating verily with other bobbins. There we go. How much did it mate? Well, you can see if I do this how long the tail has become, and this is in part because both of them came undone. I was counting out earlier how many more bobbins I needed to wind, and the short answer is thankfully not too many. I think I worked it out to be 5. Well, 5 pairs. So, which meant that today I would not get to a point where I was needing bobbins I didn't have prepared. So, I haven't done any. I probably should have done, but I haven't done any. So, for now, anyway. So let's grab you, put you in that hole there, strangle that bobbin round it. Okay. So I'm going to twist all of these now so I don't forget. Why am I twisting them? When you've done cloth stitch, everything to make the cloth stitch is parallel, and to go between to go between stitches, it is deemed normal to add a twist. So one twist has just been added so that I don't forget. Yeah, my biggest problem at the moment is not being able to tell where the pin is compared to the hole. Which is distinctly a problem. And of course one that will not get easier with time. No, I thought I had another one. So, what are you both up to this evening so far? Other than coming to watch me? why I'm doing that. I've got that one, haven't I? Take that out. There we go. Next pair of bobbins. Who have also mated and tangled themselves up. More storms on Wednesday. That's no fun, Denji. Don't want to be hearing that. You don't want to be printing about that. No one wants to hear there's going to be more storms on Wednesday. Everyone wants to hear about cute puppies and kittens. And how it's going to be a great and sunny week, surely. Yeah. Pretty much sucks that you're having to work on a Sunday, though, but, you know, someone has to somewhere. As you say, things like newspapers, well, you know, someone's got to have been working on them over the weekend for it to come out on Monday, so... So yeah, I thought I'd stream a bit later today. I thought a couple of times earlier today I'd start it, and then I thought, well, I don't want to start it now because at some point I wanted to cook me some baked potatoes, and so I decided I'd have baked potato for tea. So I didn't want to do that and put them on and then know that sort of like an hour later my baked potatoes would be ready and I'd be smelling them and sitting here going, oh, I want to go and eat now. So I watched a bit of streams, I played a bit of game, I've mooched around, I've tidied up, I fiddled with my settings, as I've said, so it's been kind of an eventful week. My lovely co-worker came up, said hi yesterday, which was nice, because although I've known them for years, obviously they're my co-worker, but... due to working at home, we don't see each other very often. Yeah, storms suck. I mean, as I said, a couple of weeks ago, we had, for England at least, epic storms and Armageddon level rain and stuff. And, you know, highly undesirable. And, you know, it basically didn't stop raining for a week and there were flood warnings constantly and... Technically, I live in a floodable zone, so my phone kept going, bing, there's a flood warning, bing, there's a flood warning, and it's like, yeah, I know, hasn't flooded once. In fact, the only time it was slightly looking even remotely possible was the very first Friday, where instead of flooding out the back as it usually does, it was flooding out the front of my house, because, well, the drain system that our country has is kind of universal. You don't really have your own drain system. You join the common cause sort of thing. They all lead into one. And the main drain was, well, bubbling up further down the road. So our bit of drain clearly was not being able to feed into it. So it was... So it was backing up and, well, just leaving all the water in the road, really. But even then, it was nowhere near the house and, you know, not really exactly cause for alarm. It just was a bit odd that the road was kind of turning into a puddle. But actually, what was more funny, and I think I mentioned it before, was the toilet. My toilet was singing at me, and I've never heard it in this country. And in fact, I'm not going to show you the video because you don't need to see a picture of a toilet. But if I can find the video, where is it? There it is. It's not very long. And with the dog howling in the background. But what actually was quite weird about that was that it wasn't the toilet backing up. Now, when I moved in this house, I love this house. Believe me, I so love this house. But when I moved into this house, one thing that does happen occasionally without any obvious cause is that I will get up in the morning, as I do, come downstairs, realise I need the loo again because I'm old and you go for the loo when you get up and about half an hour later you need the loo again. And the downstairs toilet would occasionally be like bone dry. There'd be no water in the bottom of the toilet. Now, compared to some countries, we have quite a lot of water in the bottom of our toilets. And so that just makes it even weirder because obviously it's not, maybe it was a hot evening or whatever and it's evaporated. No. It can't evaporate because it's got to go over like a hump to get down the drain. Otherwise it wouldn't stay in there. So it's really weird that it's empty, and I've kind of given it a funny eye and a bit of a weird look every time. But thought nothing of it because, of course, it doesn't do anyone harm. You just flush it, water arrives, you go to the loo, you flush it again, and off you go. And you forget all about it until next time. But in this case, this was air bubbles coming up through the toilet. But it didn't do it just once. It was doing it for like nearly an hour. And what's not so apparent from that video is how loud it was. Now, it happened on a Friday, and I tend to have takeout dinner on a Friday because, well, I've worked hard all week, I deserve it, right? And I'd heard some noises and thought, I wonder what the hell that is, and kind of ignored it because you tend to. The dogs weren't bothered, so it can't be that exciting, so I ignored it. And then when the takeout man came, it was like, can you hear that? Am I dreaming, or can you hear that? Because the door to the room was closed. And he was like, his English wasn't too great, but he did sort of go, yes, I can hear something. So I thanked him very much for my dinner, and I went and had a look. And that's what I found, was the air bubbles bubbling up through the toilet. So that must have been the third or fourth time. And it would then stop for a little bit, and then go back to bubbling again. So, but for that, I had to go away, find my phone, get the camera out of it, find the video bit of it rather than just the camera bit of it, and faff around a bit. So it wasn't like it was a short-lived one-off event. As I say, it went on for about an hour, and then just stopped. And but fortunately, it wasn't, it wasn't, as you say, Tenchi, it wasn't actually backing up, and it wasn't like, leaking all over the floor or anything quite so dramatic. Thank goodness. But at the same time, it did sound like aliens or a swamp monster was trying to come up through the pipes. Which, of course, is not what you want, really. But it did sound so much like there was some kind of alien trying to escape out the toilet. It was not happy. And as I say, I've never heard a toilet in this country do that. Yeah. Apparently it's very common where I live about the dry toilet. This village that I live in, apparently we get a lot of it. We're not on a hill or anything, and so I don't quite understand why it would be that bad. But obviously, for whatever reason, it is not, as you say, Tenchi, it's not a good thing, because then the rather interesting fumes that are generated by toilets can escape into the house and make life just a little bit more interesting. And as you say, it must be some form of air pressure. But again, if the air pressure was pushing normally, you would expect, like the bubbles that I had then. With the water to go away, it must be a vacuum sucking the water away from the toilet. At least initially. But it is just a little... It's a few shades of weird. I've lived in a place where you lived with a well and a cesspit. For those who have never met them, the cesspit is as it sounds. There is a pit. Your waste runs into it. You have to have it cleaned every so often because, well, it's a hole in the ground full of raw sewage. And a well, obviously. We all know what wells are. So, and, preferably the two are not too close together. So, I've lived where basically there isn't running water. But I have never, ever heard toilets do that. I mean, I can imagine it in far off places, no offence to, darkest Africa or something. But I can imagine their toilets doing weird things because they're not, well, they're out in the middle of nowhere and, things are not designed to be quite so out in the middle of nowhere. But I have never heard, kind of in the Western world, toilets that make those kind of noises. So it was quite disturbing because, of course, living alone and all you hear are funny noises, especially noises you can't identify, because obviously it was almost like a boing noise, because it was partly obviously the frequency or whatever, but it really echoed, because bathrooms inevitably echo, but it really echoed round the house and was quite disturbing. And obviously Amy started singing about it because I was concerned, and just not ideal, not the plan of the day, not the plan of the day at all. So something to bear in mind for next time it rains a lot, I guess. Mind you, it didn't half rain earlier, but it was a very short-lived bit of rain, but it didn't half rain earlier. And oh look, I've got another chubby. Look, remember I said about the nice chubby one? Well, I've got a dark chubby one now. So yes, I think when it comes to future bobbins, I need to stick to one of the 3 other bobbins that I quite like. And definitely not these. I did think about rewinding them and making it so that I had nicer bobbins to work with. But I think the short answer is as I said, we will get to the end of this quarter, or even half a quarter, because obviously I can chop it off in the middle and kind of make a decision as an 1/8 of a square. Throw the thread away, because clearly that's a thing. And well, either I like it enough and we're keeping it and we're going to do the square, so would redo it, or make a few design choice decisions and make a couple of alterations and just use any other bobbin, frankly. The Honiton ones, as I say, they rolled around and were too light, but they were good for stacking in their multitudes. And I do have these, which aren't that obvious what they are at this point. Hang on, let me open said small, tiny, plastic slidey bag of things. These are little tiny... Oh, it's not a very good place to show you either, actually. But there you go, on my finger is a small elastic band, and you can put them round the bobbins and then they behave, which was very successful last time. So even the Honiton ones would be better than this. Sigh. More bobbins. It's amazing how mixed up and tangled they are when you put them on in an order, so they can't. Yeah, that's interesting. You must have gone round the other way. Okay. Okay. You can go back on there. In fact, let me, while I've got this one in my hand, before all chaos breaks loose, because it's very tangled at the bottom, let's wrap some of this round the top to stop it getting more tangled. you back on there. Oh, right, pin. Release a little bit of this one and a little bit of this one. I don't have to use both to release some string, but obviously I do want to try and keep them similar lengths on available for later. Obviously there's not going to be that much for later on these bobbins, but principles, it's the habit, isn't it? It is the habit. Well, according to OBS, we still have no dropped frames, which is the sign of a great and glorious thing. That's two. I'd make a terrible radio host. You're not supposed to have dead air on the radio. But then a radio host wouldn't be making lace. So, well, unlikely. Well, you've got a bit of music to listen to while I work, I suppose. It's not completely silent. Oh, my poor back. As I said, I think a couple of weeks on Friday was about a week ago. My back just went nuts for no reason, and it hasn't been happy since. It's not unhappy. There's nothing actually wrong with it. It does give room for the environmental sounds. That's true, and so you can hear me. Yes, Elizabeth, a lot of people do say that, they love the sound of the bobbins, and especially people with bolster cushions who've either got leather or vinyl. It's usually vinyl. They tell you it's leather, but there's no way that's leather. They have vinyl strips, and I've actually got a piece of leather, because you can put it across the bottom so that they land on it, and it does accentuate the sound, to be honest. Which is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad thing. But at the same time, in situations like a flat pillow like this, it doesn't really help. A piece of leather stroke vinyl covering pins obviously is quite good, because one of the things you will notice is that, like, even the 4 pins that I've got holding the pattern down, they tend to move. They tend to, like, spring out and try and come visit you, and especially the one here in this corner down here. But it is one of those things that you have to try and bear in mind while you do it, sort of thing, because the noise, the noise from my own end, obviously, potentially is different to the one that you hear slightly, because, it's got to be digitised and it's got to be picked up by the mic and all those kind of things. But it is just sometimes it can be distracting when you're trying to think and all you can hear is every last little movement. For sake of the argument, if I was wearing something with a button on the sleeve, and the button on the sleeve's also banging on it, and it could get quite frustrating because it's almost impossible to be quiet when you want to be. So, I don't know. the whole piece of leather thing, as I say, most of them seem to have actual vinyl, and you can tell this because it's very clearly a piece of flooring. The girl who told me that it was a piece of leather, I'm sorry, that's fake floorboards. That's not leather, that's vinyl. But it does, leather or vinyl doesn't really matter. It is kind of a good thing, and because obviously at bobbin level you more uncommonly put pins in to keep them out of the way, you can use pretty much anything you like without it dying because the pins have stabbed it too often. So yeah, but people do like the sound of lace making. It's like, personally, I quite like the sound of weaving as well. Stomp, stomp, bash, Yeah, you're going to be painful later. That's right, they're just tangling because they can. Most people quite like bobbins. I like it more when you don't have to keep stopping to put pins in, because then it's more like rainfall. Oh, my back. I don't know how many of you can hear me if there are adverts, so I'm going to take a quick slurp of drink. Penny, pen, pen, pen. Phew. I dropped one and I thought it was one of the ones that were undone, and that it would do the leap to the bottom of the floor, and because it is all tangled up. Oh, it is undone. It was just tangled up in itself enough that it couldn't fall to the floor. Great. I think one of the advantages of loom weaving, obviously, is the fact that you can get into a really good rhythm. So you do kind of stomp, throw, bash, almost real time like that. And it becomes quite methodical, and you almost breathe along with it, and all the rest of it. Whereas something like this, because you're constantly stopping to put pins in, the sound is more sporadic. I mean, it's a nice sound, but the sound is distinctly much more sporadic because, well, you've got to fanny around with all the pins. However, I have news. I may have found a big bolster cushion. Now, I am waiting to hear, because if I am right, this cushion is almost perfect and not very expensive. This is suspicious, I'm sure you will all agree. Nothing that is as near as, damn it, as to perfection is ever cheap. And this, frankly, is cheap. So the cushion that I have potentially found is the best part of 30 inches long, which is very much wide enough for a net curtain, and has a diameter of 28 centimetres, one moment, Alexa, what is the circumference of a circle with a radius of 28 centimetres?
From house.gov. The circumference of a circular disc with a radius of 28 centimeters is 177.6 centimeters, calculated by using the formula pi times 2 times radius.
Wow, really? If it's got a diameter of 28 centimetres, it's got a girth of over a metre. So, plenty big enough for a window. So, if I'm right, it only seems to be £20. As I said, there must be some misunderstanding. I must have misunderstood something, but it seems to be only £20. So, this would seem to be a very required object for future potential. And should it be true, I may actually have to rethink the whole net curtain job, because if I can make it in one piece, well, you would, wouldn't you? Because then you don't have to join it at all together and it would look smart. But then I really would need 8 gazillion bobbins. So, because let's face it, we know that the square in front of us is about 6 inches, and therefore half the width of that is 3 inches, and there are nearly 100 bobbins. So when you're talking somehow the best part of 30 bobbins an inch, how is it 30 bobbins an inch? That doesn't make... It sounds like it doesn't make any sense, because of course you've got to remember that each of these dots actually represent 4 bobbins meeting. So of course, let's say this is an inch, which is about to be, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, that's 24 bobbins. So it's not unrealistic, but it seems excessive. So I don't know. If I was going to make 43 centimetres, whatever the heck that is in inches, we worked out it was about 18 inches, didn't we? Well, then I'm going to need 300 bobbins, and so I'd need more bobbins. And I'd be able to use my favourite bobbins. I might have a few problems trying to show you it though, and the reason for that is that, unlike say this pillow, where once I'm done I can just turn the pillow, with the bolster cushion, because maybe the pattern would be much more wiggly, you'd be constantly turning it, but sometimes you'd be end on, which is 30 inches, and other times you'd be 28 centimetres away, because it would be width-wise. And so I'm not sure that this pillow would be ideal for your viewage. How do I keep track of the bobbins? With difficulty, because I'm blind as heck. And if you know, as you know, my normal language tendency, the F word really does truly apply to how blind I am. So how do I keep track of the bobbins? The answer is you don't, more or less. So for these ones, they're nicely spread out and all in order. This is great, and they're the ones that I'm currently working with. These are the ones that I'm discarding, so they get pushed to the side. Now, they occasionally mount up upon each other, as they have here. But what you can do is when you come to use them, so let me just shift these out the way so that I don't end up in a pickle. So, like this, we go a couple of pairs in, so where it's got a little bit more confusable here, right? If I was about to use these, I'm looking at, say, the fact that this one, and you have to work out which one's across. Now this, what you can't see, because of course it's white on green, let me see if I can zoom in a bit. Yeah, zoom. Probably not enough that matters. Oh, that's nice and blurry, isn't it? There we go. Hopefully that's reasonable. In fact, let me pull up a screen and check how focused that is for you. Because, yeah, that's no freaking good whatsoever at all, is it? Alright. You take your hand off it, of course it slips. No, don't slip back. Right, if you look here, you can see that instead, whereas most of them are coming off like this pair here, and there is a single cross, some shenanigans stroke fuckery has gone on with this pair. And what you do is you uncross them till they make sense. And now both these pairs would be okay to use because they're in order. So that's basically all you need to do is when you come to grab a pair of bobbins, if you pick it up and do this and you do a bit of this kind of thing, you can see where it's at and whether it's happy or not and whether you should be using it or not. And it does help. It does help with if you've got thicker thread and you've got, really contrasting thread. So if this was, red, for example, if this was pillar box red, of course you're not British, so pillar box red being this kind of tomatoey red kind of thing. I know it's blurry, but bear with it, it's just the colour you're after. So pillar box red kind of colour, it would be a lot easier to see even from a distance. But with finer threads, tiny threads, it is harder to tell. Hence, I have on many occasions kind of muttered and tutted because it is hard for me to see even from a foot away as to exactly what is going on. When I was doing the square before, I have a ring light with a 10 times magnifying glass in it. That really helps. In fact, zoom like this really helps because I can see that more clearly on my screen once I full screened it, of course. But at the same time, I can't see in real life, shall we call it. I can't see so well and I end up leaning really far forward and making an idiot myself trying to glare at it. So, question for you. Do you want to be able to see the bobbins or do you want to watch the threads grow? That's, I think, the question. Do you want to watch... So do you want the zoomed in or the zoomed out version? Because, of course, I see the zoomed out version because I have to sit far enough away from it. And I sit upright. I can't slouch over it because my back will kill me. So that's really the big question is, would you rather see... Well, let's do a bit more zoomed in for a minute. Let's do a bit of work with it zoomed in for you. Maybe, and you can see a little bit of that. Well, let's do a bit of both, so, appease everybody. But, see how you can see how some of the threads are crossing to make the stitches on the way in. And, have a little bit for everybody. So, more bobbins. It's one of those unfortunate things is unlike weaving when obviously to an extent a zoomed out view doesn't really show you a lot. You really want a close up of someone's feet to see what they're stomping on, and you want to see the cloth that's appearing. The rest of it isn't overly relevant. You don't need to see the shafts going up and down, although kind of is interesting. Draw looms is a bit more fun to watch people pulling pulleys and the like, but you kind of want to see the cloth grow. When you're lace weaving, obviously you're kind of want to see a bit of both, but it's hard to get the detail because obviously you're working on with individual threads at a time, and it is then very difficult to get a good view of all the right bits because maybe you want to see which bobbins they're touching, but then maybe you can tell that by the threads that move. So I'll do a little bit of closey-uppy so you can see me, not stabbing very well with pens, and because that's what you're going to see a lot of. And of course my hand will be in the way, and you get to see really good close-ups of my hand. And the fact that I did have some nails. I did have some nice nails. I am not particularly a nails person, but I did have some nice nails because I have a habit of picking nails. But I've broken a couple and picked one. Well, I broke them and then of course I picked it because I broke it. And it's, it's looking a bit sorry for itself now. So they're not looking so nice. And of course, doing this where realistically all you get to see is my hands, you needed nicer fingers than that. Yes, I could go and put some false nails on. I've got the crap to do it for some reason. Don't ask. But I'm not very good at it, and it would look pretty tacky. So I know in 2020 I was wearing false nails to protect my nails so that I could actually let them go and stop picking them, which was when I managed to break my picking habit for the most part. And I had to go in, and my boss's boss came and was having a chat with something about me, to me about something, and yeah, I did something, and my nail, the false nail came off and went bing, and it didn't half give him a shock because of course I'm not a girly girl, and he was really not expecting that. But that's how it happens, you know. Bin one or two more rows, I think. Yeah, I've got 2 more bobbins, so that's be about right. Yeep. Oh, I am old and creaky. That's the. Old and creaky. Pin a bit more angle on my bin if possible. So, and of course they're both unknotted themselves. Well, we're definitely doing better today because we're at 1 hour 23 and still 0 dropped frames. So this is a good sign. I take it that the streaming gods have forgiven me my faux pas, or whatever the faux pas was. Sure, as they have surely not indicated what I did wrong. But definitely does look like it should be happier from your end. And obviously you are both talking to me, and it feels fairly real time. I mean, obviously there is a slight delay because it's got to get to you and you've got to type it, but it is fairly real time. So yes, is this or is this not the thinnest, smallest bobbin? Ooh, interesting smell there, dog. That is a unique perfume you have. Oh. Why is this so awkward? I need a pin. By the way, if you do see my head, I apologise. But I need to sort out the knot on this bobbin. Bent my stupid pin. Bent my pin again. Seriously, look at the shape of this pin. What is this so knotted? Proper knotted. It doesn't want to be coming undone. And I needed it to come undone. Time for a more solid pin. Let's go for it. I don't know. It's probably me. And of course, that's far too long. But far too long is better than far too short, because it's much easier to make it shorter. That's still too long. So, And we won't use the fat pin because we're using thin pins. As I was saying earlier about the different kinds of lace, is there special lace making thread? Yes and no. In short, you can buy, unlike sewing reel bobbin styles, bobbins of threads. And she says, quickly looking at a table, I do have some. Hang on. So, this is not the one I'm using for the pattern, because this is one that I got with a new pattern that I bought. But you do get, let me zoom out a bit. Okay, hang on. You do get standard kind of sewing thread looking thread. The short answer is a bit like weaving. You want a reasonably high twist on it, because the movement of the bobbin, the winding of the bobbins especially, is fairly unforgiving on lesser threads. However, the truth of the matter is, you can use crochet thread, you can use sewing thread, you can pretty much use anything as long as you do it carefully. Now, obviously, the great traditionalists and the snobs of lace making will tell you that it's either got to be silk or linen. How dare you possibly use anything else? And even on Amazon, you can buy linen lace thread, not in many colours, admittedly, but you can buy linen lace thread. And there is a Bible book of converting them, because a bit like women's clothes sizing, size 50 in this is not size 50 in the other. So, for example, I have potentially a screen that can show you this. Hang on. Let me go find some files. Pictures. Screenshots. No, not that one. That one. Oh, dear Lord. So it's going to spend a little time re-picking. Let me open this one first. Hang on. Open with paint. No, that's not the one I wanted. Because, of course, being a thumbnail, it's tiny and small and I can't actually read what it says. So I know I'm looking for a white one with writing on it. There's... Is this it? Open with paint. No, that's the spec of my computer. Oh, that looks promising. Open with paint. Here we go. So if I pull this into somewhere and pick, I do have, here we go, I want this paint. Are you going to show me it? Apparently not. Even though it says it's not. It's not picking it up for some reason, even though it's blatantly obvious. not picking it up? There we go. So if I show you that is one size of lace squares, and that happens to be the thread that I'm using. I happen to be using number 40, which is 29 wraps a centimetre. Just let that sink in, how many wraps that is per inch. But if you think of, so 30 is 27, 40 is 29, 50 is 34. If I then open, that's going to be complicated, isn't it? Let's not do that. If I then go back, where's the window I had 2 minutes ago, and open its best friend, open with Paint. I do hate that Windows tries to be helpful with these things, because clearly it's not being helpful with these things. And I then want to pick up that one, and if I show you this one, as you can very clearly see, the sizes are nowhere comparable. So if I mean, obviously I can have them both open on my screen. Maybe I can't. It's hiding them behind things. Shrink some windows. So if I tell you that size 40 in the one that you're looking at, as you can see, is 26, but that's nearer 30 of the one that type brand that I'm using, but 50 is 28, well, that's kind of number 40. So it is very much like women's clothing in that lace threads and what is a wrap? That's a really good question. And a wrap is exactly what you might think. What you do is you take, say, a ruler, and you hold on to the end of your thread, and you literally wrap it round and around and around and around. And they must be touching, but not overlapping. And so wraps per centimetre means that if you took the dainty thread and you wrapped it a lot around your ruler, you would get that many wraps per centimetre. Now, personally, I've struggled with this because, of course, you can scrunch them up a bit because, of course, well, they're squishy. Even when they're small, they're a bit squishy. So to me, it's not a accurate measure, but it's a good indicator. It's better done with knitting wool, frankly, because, well, A, it's not infinitely small. And normally it is thought of as wraps per inch. But it is a good... I don't know what my dog's been eating. And again, excuse me, I just need to move this cushion to cover the offending leaking orifice of my dog. So a wraps per inch, if you think of anything, if you think of a square, if you could divide a square 20 times, you would and it was 20 centimetres wide, you know that those strips are 1 centimetre. If it was 40 times, well, it's half a centimetre. And the actual size of your thread is not so relevant. But well, no, because a ruler usually has inches and centimetres on it, so you can count however many. It's not how wide the ruler is, it's how, because that, it could be a metre wide for all that matters, it would just be a waste of thread. You can often buy a tool that looks a bit like a bobbin, to be honest, and inside there'll be a dent, and usually the dent is 1 inch long, and what they encourage you to do is to wrap it round and round and round and round, and you can get to count them, because obviously ruler is usually reasonably wide. So it is kind of an interesting way of comparing yarns, because, for example, I told the story last time of the one. In weaving, there was the one. Someone woke up one day and took a lump of fluff and spun a bit of yarn. And everyone declared it was the one. So when you get 8-2 cotton, that tells you it's 8 times longer than the one, and they applied 2 of them together. So this cotton is roughly 42, so it's 40 times longer than the 2. Now, it's not just longer because it's for the same weight. Now, rudimentary school mathematics will tell you that the volume of a circle is not a direct correlation. So for it to be twice as long, it's not half as thin, right? There's lots of pi and squaring and stuff involved. So the wraps per inch gives a much more user countable standard. You can grab and pick anything and wind it round a ruler and get wraps per inch stroke centimetre. Now, obviously, if it's really, really fat, you might only get 5 per inch. But at the same time, if it's really, really, really thin, well, we've already seen that this is 27. So 27 times 2.5 is quite a lot of wraps to do. And it is that principle, is that you or I could sit there, grab the nearest piece of string, wrap it round and go, oh, this is 12, this is 10, this is 20, whatever it is. So it is a much more user measurable function. But what it does mean that, unlike women's clothing sizes, you can it's much more like men's clothing size that says, hey, if you have a 32-inch waist, buy 32-inch waist trousers. It means that you can go, I have yarn that is 25 wraps an inch, and this other yarn that's 25 wraps an inch, they are comparable. It doesn't matter what they're called, it doesn't matter who makes them, you know that they're the same. And it also doesn't matter so much on how they're made, because spinners will tell you that you can make dense yarns and fluffy yarns, and again, that will then vary the length you get per weight. So there are lots of things involved, and hence the one is a little bit vague, to be honest, but it is how they measure them. So weavers do measure everything in the one, and the one varies by the fibre type of the yarn. So a cotton one is not the same as a wool one, just to be really annoying, because that would be too easy, because then you could take 8-2 cotton and 8-2 wool and know that they're compatible. No, it doesn't work like that. So the whole, as a whole, lace makers tend to use a bit more of the crochet numbering factions, but some patterns will list you need 82 cotton, because we deal with really fine threads, or 102 cotton, and you're going, my hair isn't that thin, I am not working with stuff like that. I mean, it would look glorious, but my sanity would be long since gone. But it does mean that you have a user comparable, like getting your scales out. You have a user comparable value that you can go. Because after all, while a kilo is made from a litre of water, which is a kilo of water, the bitch catch-22, but at least if you know that something is a kilo, you can find a litre or you're a kilo of the other. Pound. Now, I grew up with pounds and ounces because my parents were older than me, obviously, and so I grew up on pounds and ounces and inches and yards and grew up with all of that. And my parents did not transition, as far as I know, to this day, even though they're dead now. But as far as I know, they never transitioned to centimetres and litres and all the rest of it. So I grew up semi-bilingual. And so, hence, even while I talk to you, sometimes I talk to you in centimetres, sometimes I talk to you in English, because it depends on how my brain thought of that value the first time round that it thought of it. So, for example, the square is 6 inches, but I know my window's in centimetres. Yeah. Welcome to my world of confusion. So, it is confusing being me, but obviously, because I was, my parents' child, I did grow up understanding a bit of both. I find that shorter things I do in inches, longer things I do in metres, by travelling miles, because picturing a mile in my mind is not as easy, but knowing that from here to there is about a mile. So I can tell you now, I live about 1.5 miles from where I work. I couldn't tell you that in kilometres because I can't picture a kilometre. But I can also tell you that my computer tables, I don't know, 3 feet. And it's like, is that less than a metre or more than a metre? I'm not, it's, to be honest, I think it's slightly more than a metre, so it's probably a bit more than 3 feet. But I've got a tape measure, I could measure it. So yeah, it is a confusing world, but the wraps per centimetre bugs me slightly because I don't really work in centimetres, and to be honest, when weaving, you generally work in inches, and being a child of my parents, inches I am more comfortable for me in that point. But at the same time, Louette, who makes some weaving stuff, do it in centimetres, and so. But if you think of wraps per centimetre, 27 wraps per centimetre is a lot. It really, really is. Because, frankly, this is sewing thread. I mean, I wouldn't even call this button thread. It's not like even thick thread. It's sewing thread. This is, I mean, I know that in these days, average sewing thread is now super thin. And, if you so much as look at it funny, if you put any tension on it, it's gone, right? It's undone itself. It's broken. Because thread these days, much like cloth these days, if you buy some cotton fabric off Amazon or wherever, it is the thinnest stuff. Now you can buy like 20-ounce cotton that frankly is kind of like tent material, but for the most part, my pillow's lifted up at the back, there we go. For the most part, it is not conducive to normal clothes. You wouldn't wear 20-ounce cotton for clothes, that's for sure. But the average cotton that you buy off Amazon and a lot of these, fabric stores is so thin that, well, that's why they invented petticoats. Because you need like 5 layers of it before the sun can't be seen through it. And that doesn't feel right. Because I remember cotton being not thick, but even this, the cotton on this is so thin. It's, you almost tear it if you hand sew it, because it can't take it. It's made out of nothing. It's like working with tissue paper, just made out of cotton. So hence sewing thread, because everything else is thinner. And so to me, this is normal sewing thread size. And to be fair, in the lace making world, this is not thick, because it's not, because people use proper crochet thread stuff, but this is not thin. The sizes I showed you a minute ago, they go up to 100 in some forms, and those truly are scary. I do actually have some, but it's in the bottom of a box, and I've got a pile of things on it at the moment, so I'm not going to go and get those for you. Maybe next time. But the thread on it is truly infinitely small, and for a net curtain, it would be ideal to make it out the thinnest stuff you humanly could do. The anxiety of those bobbins, because of course you'd need more bobbins to the inch, because although your bobbins to inch ratio is more determined by your preference to an extent, obviously there are some limitations. So if you're working with number 5 crochet thread or something, which of course is huge, it's got to have sufficient space between the pins so that your thread will fit. If I went with super fine thread, it would look scraggly because there wouldn't be enough going on between the pins to make it look neat and tidy. And when I slightly upsized this one and went thinner on the thread, I hit the jackpot because this seems to be perfectly ideal. Whereas before it was a little too thick, but only a little. And in fact, it only really showed on the cloth stitch kind of bands across here that it was slightly warping because there wasn't quite the room for it. So in weaving terms, you were trying to bash your set too hard. It just wasn't really working. So picking the set equivalent is harder with lace making because it depends a bit on the stitches that you're doing. It depends on the thread type, the size of your pin, and a whole waft of other things. And that really is a bit of a problem because it does mean that you can't go, I'm using size X thread from so-and-so. What should my pin gap be? Oh, look, rain alert. So that can be slightly frustrating because obviously there is no lookup table, whereas, for weaving, obviously they kind of go, if you're doing plain weave, you need a set of this. If you're using this thread, a set of this will give you a tight cloth, this one will give you a bit more drapey cloth, and you get a bit of a range and job's good. And they don't have that for lace making. They just kind of let you at it, and what they expect you to do is, like all crafts, do a bit of a sample. Only sampling in lace making, as we're proving, is not quite as quick as many other crafts. I mean, to be fair, weaving's not a particularly fast thing, but one of the advantages with weaving is that, let's say I'd put 200 threads on as my warp. If I felt that I needed it to be slightly denser, I could make my project slightly narrower. But then if you were making clothes and you needed it to be wider, well, now you've got the problem of maybe you've wound 20 yards of warp on. Now you've got 20 yards of extra threads you kind of really need to attach, but can't because, well, they're all through the loom. So you end up with lots of weights and other things dangling. I need to be right back a second, so bear with me for 1 minute. And I'm back. Feel better now. Right. So let's shuffle my bobbins around some more. And now, see, this is where life gets truly complicated. And I look round for another piece of cloth that I may steal. There we go, I've got another one. I tend to fold them in half because it gives me a bit more coverage. And then I can pick these up and move them round the corner to make a bit more space. free this pin, my holding pin from earlier. So, like we were talking, like as you asked earlier, how do I tell whether which bobbins are good and which ones are bad? You don't keep track of them. That is half the point. So, for example, I'm about to make this little zigzag section down here. Let me zoom in a bit, because it'll be a bit easier for you to see. So I'm about to make this zigzag section down here. And the way you do that is you stop using a pair of bobbins. Let me zoom out for a second, because otherwise you can't see my hands. So you stop using a pair of bobbins on this side and grab a pair of bobbins from this side. So you work slowly in a diagonal that way. So what I need to do now is look at the bobbins that were previously in my section right at this corner point, and all the other bobbins are irrelevant. So they can all say tucked in over there and out the way. So I don't have to care for those bobbins. These bobbins, maybe this black one too, we will find out, will come into play as we work down the diagonal. So the only bobbins I really need to keep track of are the ones that are in play, and maybe two either side. The art of bobbin lace making really revolves around two moves: left over right or right over left. So it's really not quite so bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, lots of bobbins gives me major anxiety because they tangle. But that's and so there are some really mind-numbingly scary pictures where you see people with like stacks like up here, kind of like 5, 6, 7, 8 layers of bobbins in a pile. And sometimes you see people and they're sitting there and they're going, bobbiny, bobbiny, bobbin, chuck, bobbiny, bobbiny, bobbin, chuck, bobbiny, bobbiny, bobbin, chuck. Oh, I need some more now. And they grab two. And they're always the right two. Now, that's voodoo stuff, that is. That's witchcraft. This is why women were thought to be witches in the early years, right? Because it is voodoo and witchcraft. Now, I will say, when using my favourite chunky bobbins on a bolster pillow, you can just chuck. You really can. Because they stay in the order you put them. Because they're so big that the threads can't mingle. So even if the bobbin you pick up is not the one you want, you put it down and it's going to be really easy to find the one you want. Because if it's not that one, it's probably right next to it. So it is really easy to work with. Whereas spangles suck. There is no other way to put it. Spangles 100% suck. I appreciate that they generally mean that, if I wobble my pillow like this, they don't move. This is a great and glorious thing, because of course if I put this down, you can see it's moving around and you can hear it, because of course this thing has a mind of its own, and these things weigh like 0 grams. Screw those. So big chunky bobbins, big chunky hands seem to be a good plan. But then when you've got 100 bobbins odd, bear in mind we haven't loaded all of our bobbins yet. We've got 5 more pairs. The reason we haven't gone any further, Liz has not wound thread on them. But I also calculated that we had enough to get to this section. And what I will do is I will work down this diagonal. So there's quite a big area I can work on before I need those bobbins. So while I'm in maybe some meetings at work this week, don't tell the boss, I can wind some bobbins. I even have a bobbin winder. Spangled bobbins and my big chunky bobbins don't tend to go so well in the bobbin winders. The others do. Just because, well, you've got to get chunkiness in the bobbin holder. So I keeping the bobbins is not hard, because realistically you always work out the topmost hole down. So in this case, arguably the topmost hole is this rose ground. and we could almost work the Woes ground, except we need to have done this pin here to feed that pin there. So I can't. So therefore I'm going to do the cloth stitch section, and this is how people go, I don't know how you know which bit to do next. Well, that's how you tell, because you look at a spot and go, I can't do that without having done that first. And then when you get to a bit that says, I can do that, you can do that. And if there are multiple paths of that, so for example, I could make a start on a few rows of the ground on this side. If I do a couple of layers of this stitch, I could do some of the layers of row ground. So you have choices, but I find it easier to work in bigger chunks, as in I will do this cloth stitch down to the bottom here to be level up with the bit we just did, which is why I stopped where I did. So if I zoom in, I stopped where I did, if I bend these threads around the pin, because it lines up with the bottom of where that that cloth stitch bit changes direction. So I could have kept working to the bottom and had 10 more bobbins on my pillow for the sake of it. Hey, let's not. Let's do all of this bit, so there's only this thin strip to go, and then add the extra bobbins and then just finish it off. Because once you get to, if I then add these 5 bobbins, because I'm only going to do a quarter because I've already had enough of the spangles, once I get to putting that last pair of bobbins in, doing what I need to do with it, that pair of bobbins is gone. I do not need that pair of bobbins ever again, because we're not going round the square. Even though I pricked it all out and was ready to do a whole square, I forgot how annoying spangles were. And even though I was winding them and getting slightly annoyed with the spangles, I had forgotten how bad spangles were annoy me. So if I'd done the right thing, which would be I'd picked a different set of bobbins, in fact only of the other 4 that don't have spangles on, and got on with it, I probably would be continuing with this square, because I am kind of liking how it's going. I do think it's a little plain, but it's a net curtain. It's not supposed to be telling a story, although telling a story would be nice, right? Part of me has that kind of, I'd love for it to be like that Japanese blueware crockery where there's like a bridge and a lotus tree and a woman doing something in the corner, and I'd love to do something like that in lace, but I am not that artistic. Geometric shapes are kind of my maximum level of capability, so part of me would love to do that. And so it's a bit like if I get the bolster pillow and get to do a squiggly one, I can doodle a squiggle that big. I really could. I used to doodle them all over my school books, and I got really good at making interesting. Here is a weird one, right? I know I'm weird. You're allowed to say I'm weird. I had a standard school book, so it's kind of like B5 side, right? And I started doodling in a pen because, well, I was bored. I spent a lot of my time at school bored because it involved reading and writing, my least 2 good subjects, and not enough of thinking, and which is my strong point. So I suffered a lot at school, and so I was bored, and I was doodling, and I did a bit of a doodle, and I picked a slightly different pen or a pencil and doodled a bit more. I drew an accurate British Isles with my doodles. I wasn't thinking about it, I just doodled. I'm terrible at geography. I mean, seriously, I kind of know north, east, south and west, but at the same time, you know, if I told you exactly where I lived, which of course I'm not going to do that, I'm not that stupid, but, you know, if I tell you I live in Gloucestershire, England, which is basically east of Wales, right? So clearly Wales is west. Now I know that when looking up on a map, that makes it to the left. But where I'm currently sitting in my house, I could not point you out north, east, south and west. I mean, I've got a compass on my phone, I could work it out. But at the same time, I know that if I go out this road, go down there, get on this road, turn left there and go, I would get to Wales. But I don't know whether that's northeast. You know, when I lived with my parents, so my parents lived in West London, and it was kind of not northwest, but kind of west northwest. It was kind of slightly north of West, but not by a lot, West London. And Heathrow is west southwest, so it's much, it's just below West London. But at the same time, I know that now because I'm an adult and I've looked it up. But as a child, I could have told you every road to take to get there. I had no idea if it was north, east, south, or west of where we lived, because it was just a very famous place and it was just down the road. But I didn't know compass-wise how to get there. And if someone had said, can you find it on a map and can you find yours on a map? No, I couldn't, because I knew where I was within the remits of where I was. So are you in Wales or are you in England? I'm going to guess you're in Wales, to be honest. No, I don't know any Welsh. I can sound Welsh if I go there, because I'm one of these people that can drive through with the radio off and come out with an accent. I especially do that to Birmingham for some reason. I am physically incapable of going near Birmingham. You are in Wales. Welcome to the land of the rain, everybody. By the way, even better, southwest Wales. So yours is where all the water comes from that I get. Thanks for that. All of the floodwater we get is yours, by the way. Because the River Severn runs in our general direction. So yes. It's nice to know that someone is on my own time zone. That's always a pleasant thought, and it is very nice for you to join me. I do appreciate that. I should do the streamer thing and say follow me, and then you'll know when I go live, because I normally go live at 2:00 UK time on a Friday, and spontaneously at other times is currently the schedule. And obviously with the making of said Square, I wanted to get on with it, so I have done Saturday and Sunday. I might do some more during the week till we get to the end of the Square, or the end of the quarter, or when I give up, whichever comes first, because these spangles will kill me. But yes, thanks, Elizabeth. I hope your tea towels were going very well. I look forward to seeing a picture when you're finished. I've had the Southwest of those who wish their water didn't get it. Okay, fair enough. Yours mainly goes into the river, into the estuary then, I take it. But this is nice to have a fellow UKian, can't say Brit after all, but it is nice to have someone around who is on my time zone. So yes, do follow so you can come back, and next time if you're interested, obviously I'm not going to make you. I can't make you, more to the point. But it is nice to have somebody new. Because I should point out, the other two people who are watching, Elizabeth, who's leaving, and Tenchi. Tenchi is someone who's known me for quite a few years and watched my previous streams on gaming, and saw me go through some rather irate moments in my life. Tenchi will probably tell you of the 3-hour rant of the idiot that I somewhat took rather exception to, because he was a real bonehead. And my language was not good, and I basically spent 3 hours swearing. I was not a good girl. So Tenchi's known me a really long time, and beautifully and kindly come to many of my streams, and I do appreciate that. Elizabeth is someone I've met through weaving, so it is appreciated to have people who aren't kind of known people, if you know what I mean. Now, I need to know what happens to you, because you're tangled. So this, as we mentioned, how do you tell which thread's which? Well, you pull and you find out what happens to it, because they've tangled, it seems. And I can't see that. Glasses off, head in. Here we go. So, sorry if you can see my head. I need to get to the bottom of you and you. Yeah, you two. You can go there for the moment. Right. Now, don't need you right here, right now. I need you two, and I need one cross on you. So, there we go. So that's how you work it out. You stick your head in and you kind of leave snot trails on it, stare at the thread to find out who mated with who and who crossed who, and all of those kind of things. And then once you've sorted them out, you use them quickly before they start doing funky things and escaping, because you're an under one. Go away for a minute. The spangles annoy me so much because they flip underneath the bobbins, and then I can't, because they're above, I can't pick them up easily, or no one knows you're here. No, well, we're happy to get to know you. We'd love to get to know you. If you do crafty things, we'd love to hear about it, because, got to be slightly insane to be here. So, if you're here and you do crafty things, we'd love to hear about it all. So you're amongst friends, don't worry. Thank you for the follow. Bit more drink, I think. But yes, thank you very much for the follow. We would love to get to know you, so you are very free to share as much or as little about yourself as you would like. But you are in safe hands. We do not harbour strange individuals. In fact, I'm more likely to ban them. If they're stranger than me, we have problems. So, no, certainly Tenchi is quite harmless. I've known them for a while. I will vouch for their sanity. They've been with me through some thick and thin moments, so they are good peoples. I'd like to think I'm a good person. I have room for improvement on occasion, but I would like to think I'm a good person. So, but yes, you're amongst friends, and if you do crafty things, we would love to hear about it. If you're not crafty, what is your main hobby? And if you say making games and computing, you're still amongst friends. So, because I'm actually a geek. I used to do karate, and one of the instructions used to say, "This is not a knitting lesson," and it's kind of like, well, why not? It's, obviously I do many crafty things, and it's kind of the wrong thing to say. Yeah, I can do that too. Why? What's the problem? So, yes, it was. They stopped saying that after a while. Mainly after I made them a blanket, but they did ask for it. They said, "Can you make me a blanket?" And I said, "Yes." I didn't just randomly kind of force a blanket upon them. I did make Sensei Ted for their birthday. I bought a cheap little teddy bear and crocheted him a gi jacket and a black belt to go with his master's level of karate, because obviously, well, that's only fair. these little pins just bend way too much when you're trying to put a little bit of tension on it to make sure you've got no slacking threads somewhere. You do rope mats. I'm a big fan of Celtic knots, and you can't really do Celtic knots in anything other than the rope. They're just too thin. But rope mats are good. Rope mats are definitely good. That sounds fair enough. So, to be honest, lots of things have similarities, because obviously you weave a rope mat. Now, obviously, you are weaving a pair of ends, either from both ends or one end, depending on what you're doing, and maybe knotting it, maybe not. Lace making is kind of the same idea. There are a bunch of threads, you cross them around a bit and wiggle them up and down a bit. And the only difference with weaving on a loom is some of your bits of string are held still. So, Celtic knots. I might need to talk to you about getting one. I could do with a decent knotted Celtic knot mat. I really, really could. I have dogs and beige carpet. When I mean beige carpet, it is a slightly yellower version of this jumper. It's a manky colour, and it attracts dirt like nothing on this planet, to the point my hallway looks like a swamp, because even though I've got a beautiful floor mat scrapey thing for my front door, and I don't go in and out very often, it's really gross. And underneath my feet, which is part of the reason the camera is very carefully angled, because I often sit here, because I'm sitting on my couch, the walking around through the hall to go to the toilet, to the kitchen, whatever, has traipsed dirt into this room. And because I sit here, there is almost a 100% black circle where my feet go because of the dirt that gets picked up. And it doesn't matter how much I've carpet washed it, hoovered it, everything it, it's just minging. So some mats are a good answer to life. As are rugs, potentially, fuzzy rugs, kind of normal carpet rug kind of things. But I got a plastic kind of scratchy one for my back for the patio doors, but of course it's not very absorbent, and it's not very well. It was cheap and plastic. It's got paw print on it, but it's cheap and plastic, and so it doesn't really absorb anything. If you stand there, it will let you drip onto it, and it doesn't go on the carpet. Huzzah! But it doesn't really absorb dog feet. So, not that I really wish to dirty your beauty, I'm sure your beautiful work of art, but I could really use a functional rope mat for that. Just stay on the bobbin. There's two types of knots you can do, and neither of them. The one which goes over my thumb needs a lot more thread to wrap round, because I've got to go round my thumb and back under and over. Yeah, I think that's one of the problem with self-made stuff, is if you look at it and you go, I'm really proud of that. Yeah. Now you're stuck with the fact that, well, you're proud of that, but you now don't want to do any harm to it. I made the biggest piece of weaving thing that I set about weaving, and I needed to make two halves because I was making a cover for the guest bedroom. Now, I couldn't make it in one piece, and so I had plans of using a ribbon down the middle to mask the potentially untidy drawing because, well, it just was potentially going to be slightly untidy. Because it meant if you put a piece of ribbon all the way around it, however you hemmed it together, you could mask it by hiding it under a piece of ribbon. So I had all that planned out, and I made 2 lots of nearly 2 metre long strips of gloriousness. They were, as individuals, glorious. The same pattern, only they weren't the same, so the pattern didn't line up, so then it looked like garbage. I do in fact have a picture. Let me go hunt it down, the picture. I'm sure I can find it. It was most depressing. Go back a fair bit, but I'm sure I can find it, because it was singularly one of the most depressing parts of I had spent ages doing this very repetitive, beautiful piece of work, and what came out was not. Why is it not in those pictures? I know it's on my phone, but it's no good to me on my phone. I want it, and then we immediately leap into those. Well, doesn't that just suck? Obviously didn't post it there. I wonder if it's on. Must be on here. Let me look somewhere else for it. Scrolly scroll, scrolly scroll, scrolly scroll, scroll. Got to go back. It's over a year, so scrolly scroll. I post too much crap. Scrolly scroll. I look, picture the dogs. Scrolly scroll. Picture of my loom. Ooh, that's looking close. Well, that was the pre. So how have I got the pre stuff and not the actual? Oh, here, it must be here. There it is. Right, let me share this screen with you. Let me share this picture with you. Let's work out how to do this. Hang on. Capture. Edge. There you go. Let me. So here you see my beautiful, beautiful potential thing, except for, as you can see, while I did this, they are the same number of repeats of pattern, it didn't line up, so I couldn't join them together. I was gutted, because both of them as individuals to look at are frankly perfect. It's only when you lie them down together to work out how you get, just how to join them, and you realise how badly they don't line up, and you can't even frig it. If I'd known one looked one short, I would have done one more on the right hand side one and made it one longer, obviously, because then again, at least they'd be the same length and it would be less obvious, because there was going to be a bar down the middle with the ribbon. With weaving, it wasn't the tension, it was how hard I was smacking it. And obviously, as I got nearer the end, I was getting a bit more excited, I think. And so I obviously smacked it a bit harder. And because it only has to be a fraction over a large distance, after all, it clearly was. And I was so depressed when I did this. Put it on my floor. I haven't done a single thing with those 2 pieces. And it is just mind-numbingly depressing that this is how it turned out, because it's called Summer and Winter, so if I could flip them over for you, they are the mirror image on the back, but obviously it's light with dark picture, which is why it's called Summer and Winter, so that traditionally it'd be, say, white and blue or whatever, and as a result the white would be summer with a light, not a light coloured pattern, but a light pattern on a white background, and in the winter you'd have the dark side of the colour with the white being the pattern. And I made it in super expensive cotton, because here in the UK 8.2 cotton is just frankly extortion. I can buy 500 grams of 8.4 cotton, which I normally make things out of, for about £20. It used to be nearer 11, but it's now £20. If I want to get 250 grams, so less than, well, about obviously half of that, it's nearly 30. And of course, it's kind of obvious, but if you need more threads per inch when it's thinner, so in actual terms you often end up with more weight when it's thinner because you have more toing and froing, more upping and downing, and it just worked out as really hyper expensive. The main reason I have taken a hiatus from weaving right now is, if I scroll you back up this way a little bit, ignore, these were glorious, these were the best, this was the best thing I ever made. This was weaving with a technique called lampas. So unlike if I come out of that a sec and go down and show you you can see here that in summer and winter you end up with these little light dots in the dark bits, and obviously in the dark bits little light bits sort of thing. So but in lampas you don't get that. You literally get, here is the colour, you do get tiniest hint of part of what is known down as a tie down thread. It's not part of the actual weave, and then so it is very much like summer and winter to work with and to look at, but it's much tidier in general look. So those cushions which I made for my ex-husband are some of the best things I've ever made. But if I scroll forward to my draw loom exploits, I made things like these, which are great. They look beautiful, and they are a thing of beauty. The problem is, as you can see, I made quite a lot. This doesn't show quite all of them, but for example, if I switch to Facebook and scroll back up a bit, no, down a bit, here is one of each of the red ones that I made. So I made a great set of red ones, and I am repeating the same with the green ones. They were supposed to be tea towels. Yeah. That is not what they can be, because they can't be tea towels. These things need to be floor mats. These things could be used to cover the space shuttle. It wasn't the wrong tension, it was the wrong set. Now, could I have made up for that with slightly less picks per inch, or which is, so you have warps per inch, which is the up and down threads, and wefts, the weft thread is known as picks per inch. Could I have helped? Yeah, I do all sorts of weird stuff. You may have noticed that I also do some tablet weaving and some inkle weaving, and I knit and crochet as well. So I do lots of good things, but I tend to be a little faddy in what I do. And frankly, those failure tea towels kind of broke me, because, well, I've probably still got about 15 metres of warp on the loom in that setup. And I already know that it's hideous. I already know that they are not what I want them to be. Now, they could be used as Christmas table centres. I'm not going to disagree that that's not a thing, because they're all Christmas themed, because, well, they were going to be Christmas tea towels. Because obviously there's snowflakes and bells and, well, frankly, what looks like shortbread box biscuit kind of designs, because, well, that's where I got the idea from. They're not actually shortbread design stolen off the bunch, but it was very similar in theory. And also very similar to a Fair Isle jumper. It was kind of a mix of the two. But they are literally almost, you hold one end and they hold up straight. They are flying carpet material, except they're tea towel sized. And so I don't really know what to do with the red ones. And as I say, I've got half the green ones done before I actually hemmed up the red ones and went, oh shit. And I could do other colours, but I really don't know what to do with it. I really don't. One thing I have considered is finding some ugly yarn. I mean, really ugly yarn. You know, the kind that you look at and go, what on earth possessed me to get that? You probably got it free with some other yarn, kind of yarn. And making a, for want of a better word, rug to go across the seat of my couch to help the wearing of dog paws, because we have no manners. And one of us won't let us cut his claws, so he is like Flojo with 3-inch long acrylic nails, except they're not acrylic. He's very gentle, but he does have somewhat nails, and this is not conducive to longevity of cloth. So I did consider something like that, because then I could make, basically it's only 2.5 tea towels, so I could do that, and maybe if I made it 3 or 4, I could tuck it underneath to hold it still. I do have a cloth on top of my couch at the moment to do that, but let's just say trade descriptions really should sue these people. It said it was 3-seat sofa wide. Yeah, that's why when you put the cover on, it has kind of an elastic thing. It bowed up in the middle, and I had to kind of encourage a dog on either end to sit on it to hold it down. And if I take the cushions off against the arms of each chair, the cushions in the middle basically flap up in a V and clam themselves in the middle. So it is not really suitable for 3 seats. It's too tight, really. It's like me trying to fit in a pair of size 10 jeans. It's just not a thing. So I have thought that. I do have some of my own made cushions on my couch, of which I'm very proud, and the dogs have destroyed them. But I can always make some more. I made some covers from some cushions. That they were not my best sewings, I'm afraid. Zips. I'm not good with zips, but like I'm not good with spangles, I'm not good with zips. For some reason, the zips and I had a bit of a fight, and I think the zip won. I mean, it didn't, but it looks a bit like it did. I certainly didn't win, so I think it was more of a draw. But the dogs have pulled a few threads on it, and it's looking a little sorry for itself now. Could do with a wash, actually. Yeah, I think that would help. Mind you, talking of needing a wash, what is that smell? Dogs, what have you been eating? I fed you dog food. This is not dog food smell. This is dead animal in the garden up the butt smell. It's kind of eye-watering. And of course, they're both sitting there snoring and farting. How glorious it is to be me. Just as well I live alone, really. Hence, I had to block the directional draft from one of them because she was doing too well. So, anyway, let's do a bit more. Let's do a bit more bobbin. It's 10:15. Let's do a bit more bobbins because, well, see if we can get to the end of another section. Because, well, that's a thing. But 6mm rope isn't too bad. That's kind of thin, actually. Obviously, as an ex-bell ringer, rope's kind of like, chunky. Well, it is when you're messing around with many tonnage of bells. So, 6mm isn't too bad. That's almost macrame stuff, that is. See, that doesn't quite look right. Doesn't quite look how I thought it should. You should pop up a bit more. There we go. doesn't help. You see, because the spangles stick, it puts me off my stride quite a lot. An awful lot, actually. I can't see which way around these are. I think it's over there. Let's pick out these before. Yeah. So. Yeah, because the spangles catch on themselves, the bobbin. Wow. See, this is the problem I have with weaving and, frankly, a lot of things, is that, like you've said there, 220 metres, which sounds like a lot, but by the time you've wound it round and round and round itself, doesn't go as far as people think it does, is £40. But to go up 2 measly millimetres, which, we all know is not a lot, is nearly double. It makes it unbearable. And weaving's the same, as I say, 8/4 cotton I can get for £20. 8/2 for half the weight is, somewhere almost up to nearly double the price. And you're going, this is why I use 8/4 cotton for all my tea towels. Because everybody loves a good, thick, really absorbent tea towel. But also, if I'm giving them away, as I tend to give away most of the things I make, I don't sell them on Etsy or anything. I give them to people, or I give them to people and say, if you want to make a donation towards a charity, I will donate it towards, local dogs or whatever. And but I do not expect to be paid in return. But at the same time, you sit yourself going, I remember someone asked me to make some tea towels, and they asked me to make 32 by 32 inch summer and winter tea towels, which meant I had to use the really expensive yarn. I worked out that the 4 tea towel set probably cost me £60 to make. Who in their right mind would pay 60 quid for 4 tea towels? I mean, yeah, they're big, yeah, they're great, but 60 quid? When you can buy, 10 off Amazon for like £4, okay, they're thin and they don't really absorb any liquid, but who's going to... I mean, don't get me wrong, my tea towels can absorb an awful lot. I really surprised a plumber friend who came and rescued me when... I mentioned this the other day, who came and rescued me when I needed to do something with my tap. It was leaking. And I could easily have ordered a tap off Amazon and fitted it myself. I know how, but I just had a feeling it was not going to be that easy. That maybe, although this house was built in 2007, so everything would be centimetres and a more modern fitting, yeah, we all know it's never that simple, right? So I kind of thought, well, rather than run the risk, I'll ask my plumber mate to do it, because, he's a mate and everything. So he comes along, and he kind of went, I'm surprised you weren't doing it yourself. Have fun, Tenchi. Thank you for coming. I shall see you again soon, I hope. But my plumber friend was like, I'm surprised you're not doing this yourself. I just had a gut feeling about it. So he went to fit it, and they'd used the wrong pipe. So the wrong pipe to the wrong pipe. He'd got, I don't know quite how the old, I'm not quite sure the true ins and outs. I'm not a plumber, but basically when he went to take off the old tap, he wouldn't be able to just connect the new tap. He needed to have kind of a converter, so he had to go and get that. And then when he went to do that, the pipe kind of fell apart in his hands, so he then had to go and get another bit of pipe. And then when he fitted the pipe, it was all good. He fitted the tap, and he said, he sealed it all up, and he said, don't turn the pressure up for a while, give it about 3 hours, and then it should be good. Anyway, I came and sat back in my here. Now my kitchen's 2 rooms over because there's my weaving room behind me with my loom in it. And ping goes the phone. Hi Liz, how's the tap? And I was literally kind of like, hi, and I heard, and I ran to the kitchen and there was water squirting everywhere, and I went, funny you should say that. Literally just as I started typing to you, the pipe came off and there's water bursting all over my floor. So he came back and he helped me do that. And obviously while mopping up, I went and got some of my tea towels, because obviously I've got some of my own tea towels. And he kind of looked at me and he went, where did you get these from? I said, I made them. As I'm picking up almost like a couple of gallons of liquid per tea towel. And he was like, these are really absorbent. I went, well, yes. I don't use mercerised cotton, so it is not treated, so it really is exceptionally absorbent. And he was flabbergasted because A, they were quite large, and so when wet were really heavy. It's kind of like small dog heavy, and he was kind of like, wow, I've never seen a tea towel absorb that much water. Usually it just smears it about, and it's like, that's because these are made of real stuff. He then wanted some tea towels, and he got some tea towels. But it is one of those weird things that we all, I have no problems giving my stuff away because I've already spent the money and I am choosing to do so. And that, to me, is the important part. And I think I've done too many. No, that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's right. But I give them away. I give my stuff away because I can. And I made a load of stuff for people at work, and they chose to make donations towards local dog charity as a result, which is fine. Someone benefited from my tea towels. But at the same time, things like lace making take so long. I mean, not that some of the weaving stuff takes a while, because for me to dress my drawer loom seems to take about a week. It can take shorter, it can take a lot longer. Depends what I'm doing, but it can take a long time. And it really shouldn't take that long, but for some reason it does. But with stuff like this, even if I'm concentrating on it and I'm not talking and I'm just doing this, making this square is over a week. And it's 6 inches, right? So if you were to make anything big, it is a lot of effort. And I wouldn't feel right spending potentially months making a curtain and giving it away. I would feel cheating on myself, because although I'm doing it for fun and I'm doing it because I enjoy it, I do value my time, and especially if I'm not doing something because I want to, I'm not doing it in a style I want to. Because one of the beautiful parts of all of the tea towels I made for people at work was, other than just not pink, or they didn't mind what colour, what pattern, or how it looked, and they were all really impressed. One of them was like, oh, what are you still working for? Why don't you do this full time? Because, love, no one's going to pay for the value it costs to make one of these. Which is why you put a long warp on a loom, to be honest, is so that the time you waste dressing the loom is then spread over 30, 40 tea towels and minimised. Whereas if you made 4 tea towels and it took you most of a week, well, those hours have to get spread between 4 tea towels. Whereas if you make 40 tea towels, it's now a tenth of the cost, because, well, you're spreading it between 40 of them. 1, 2, 3. So it is a wise thing, but then of course you've got to have some form of commonality between all of the tea towels that you then set out to make, because, well, yes, because obviously fishing nets were originally made out of more ropey type They certainly wouldn't make it out of tiny, stupid threads like this. But, well, let's truly be honest. Fishing nets are kind of a mix of macrame, stroke, sort of lace making. I mean, you could do stuff with it, but people don't usually. And nail binding, which is one of the few crafts I have never tried. But, it is only a fancy version of sort of a mix between sewing and crochet. So I'm sure I would be capable. But you haven't probably seen, let me show you briefly. I have this. This was a lace square I made and was the inspirational thought of, hey, I could make a net curtain. Now this square's only 5 inches square, but it is nevertheless a square. And the general gist of what I'm attempting to do is come up with a design that is... Because I didn't like the spiders, let me explain what spiders are. Let me go back to the picture. Let me explain the things I did not like about the square. So, what you can't see very clearly, but once I describe it, let's start from the middle. In the middle, there is a little plus sign, or an X sign more accurately. The X sign is filled with, quote, spiders. Now these are half-stitch spiders, so they are slightly more mingled than normal spiders. Normal spiders have a bit more solid body and more obvious legs. These don't show up very well, which was part of the reason I didn't like them, but also I don't like the actual spiders because, well, I don't. Anyway, and again, because this square is technically part of a tablecloth. Now, for me, if a tablecloth has great holes in it and scraggly bits, it's not a good plan. So I made half, because, there are many variations on many of the stitches. Much like most things, if you poke it slightly like this, but not like that, it's still the same stitch, but it's a variant thereof. So this is a half-stitch spider, and I prefer it over a normal spider, but I just found that in this it looks untidy. Then there were the cloth stitch kind of zigzags, which I have retained, as you may have noticed. Inside, in between the two cloth stitch zigzags are honeycomb stitches, but in this one, the honeycomb stitches are interspaced with one layer of ground stitch, which is the predominance of my current square, and the majority of the outside of the square you're looking at. I'll explain why it's not all of it. And this to me made it look weird, because when you do the honeycombs next to each other, they look more like honeycomb because, well, they line up with each other. But with these having like a little tiny row of bubbles each direction between everything, it just looks a little bit odd. And my last house had a real fly issue. We were like on the flight paths, and so those holes are big enough for flies to come through, so I didn't really want those kind of holes. Now to the outer section. Now, if you look really carefully, if you look at, say, the bottom section, or the bottom quarter, the triangle that's nearest us, there are 2 solid peaks and 2 half peaks, i.e. the 2 half peaks at the edges. If you look very carefully at the 2 whole peaks, you will see underneath those peaks 3 kind of markings. It's hard to call it anything more than a marking, but the markings technically are little tiny spiders. And like this, they did not work clearly. And if you look in the very top right hand corner, you'll notice a small hole. That was where I did the first spider wrong. So, I didn't like the spiders and I didn't like the holes. So, I did a lot of experiments, and I tried a various number of stitches by stitches, different widths of stitches, because, so for example, in that square and the one I'm making, the cloth stitch zigzags are 3 wide, for want of a better word. They could be 4, they could be 2. You can't have 1, it doesn't work, but you can have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So a bit of variance of how wide that is. Do you twist this? Do you not twist this? Whole rafts of variations, and I made a number of variants. I also made a number of variants of that could be used to do a different join, because obviously this square's got a straight edge. And when you join it with another square with a straight edge, you will see in the final neck curtain very much the joins. And the Chantilly lace people did come up with a way of joining ground stitch so that it was basically invisible. Yeah, they have talent, I do not. That's not necessarily true. It's not that I don't have talent, it's I am not practiced enough to do that. And if I aim for invisible and fail, that's far worse than knowing it's going to be visible and it being a bit mediocre join, because, well, you're going to see it anyway. So I decided to stick with the square, and to make my neck curtain I need 3 of these squares by 4 squares down. It's a lot of squares, and a lot of time. It's like 3 months even if I really got on with it, so yeah. It's definitely a labour of love. And I have seen some beautiful things, and I'm kind of eagerly awaiting in the post a pattern. They're not really patterns, but a pattern for a shawl, because it is worked in strips, but somehow they join the strips together without having to be the legends that the Chantilly lace people were, but without it look like, some 3-year-old ham-fisted idiot. So I'm kind of interested to see how that's done, because that was done with the honeycomb stitches. So you basically did kind of like slightly the edge of one and slightly into the edge of the other. So you almost had 2 rows to join, and I'm not quite sure how it all worked, but it seems to work pretty darn well. So I'm eagerly awaiting on how to do that. Which reminds me, I'm really surprised it's not here yet, because, well, I've had things from Latvia quicker than that. They were coming from Italy, I think. So yes, there was a lot to decide, and part of me wanted to make this as one piece, because then there would be no joins. But that's not really that practical. So now, there was another way of doing it that could have been interesting, which was, instead of making a square as we're doing, let me go back to my actual mat. So if you look and I open up a bit more, we're making this triangle on this side here. And then you'd turn it and make this triangle, well, bottom, so this triangle at the bottom here. Then you'd move to this triangle, and then you'd move to this triangle. And eventually you join the top up and call it a square. Well, instead of doing the square like that, you do more like the quilting log cabin variety, in that you make a strip and a 90-degree strip and a 90-degree strip, and getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that had some very good potential, because you could, even if you made squares using that, you could make it look more continuous by, when you got to the exit point of one square, well, it becomes the start of your next square, so you don't actually stop. And maybe you make pairs of squares so that they join together and you make rectangles. And then you join the rectangles together, but you join them in such a way, because you'd have strips that you joined along the way, there would already be a kind of join going on, and all you really have to do is add a tiny little bit and make some more joins, and it all mysteriously works out. And at some point, I will try something along those lines. But I think to pacify my brain's urgent, desperate desire to make a lace curtain, at least it's gone off the double knitted entire three panel wide window curtain thing that it wanted to do. If I can pacify it with that, then I have more time and more opportunity to learn and investigate different choices. Because obviously, as we all know, there are 1,000 ways to skin a cat, and some are more successful than others. But until you've tried a bit, you don't know what suits you. It's a bit like colours. Some colours are fabulous colours, but you can't wear them. I mean, for example, I am not a pink person. I am so not a pink person. I cannot wear pink. I absolutely cannot wear yellow. Oh, I've seen better looking corpses than me in yellow. Which was rather unfortunate because I had this rather nice kind of cream t-shirt, and as it turned out, an identical pair of cream leggings. I put them on once. I looked like a large boiled sweet. So that was not a thing. I immediately took them off and threw them in the bin because I was never going to be seen in public in those. As a pair of pyjamas, fine. Actual wearing them? No. No one in the world needed to see me looking like a large boiled sweet. But the colours were beautiful colours, just not on me. And it's the same with walls. We've all seen some beautiful paint colours. I mean, if you think of like the computer blue that you get, that kind of almost soul penetrating blue that you can get, electric blue. That's a great colour. Can even look great on a car. You wouldn't paint your house in it now, would you? It's the same with hot pink and some, real violet-y kind of colours. I'm sure someone has painted their house in that colour. But most of us would not have an entire room painted in that sort of colour. You might have a wall. You might have the chimney breast. You might have shelves. You might have curtains. But you would not carpet 4 walls and a ceiling in those colours. And if you did, you'd hate it. But it's a glorious colour, just not on the walls of your house. And so I boiled down to the fact that my net curtain needs to be white. I kind of wanted to go for off-white, but if I went off-white, it would permanently look dirty, so it's got to be white, because then I can tell if it's dirty or not. I gave in to the fact that it's going to be squares, because that's the easiest thing for me to make and join and do kind of a second-rate join without looking too much like, I drank 3 bottles of wine and had a go, even though I don't drink. I just know that if I tried to join it in invisible, that's what it would look like. A bit like those spiders, they just look like mistakes rather than actual deliberate things. So it is, but hence part of the reason why this square is so simple, because I wanted simple, but I also wanted something that you could see quite a lot of without getting a migraine because it was too busy. Now, it's clearly going to have squares. I'm going to sneeze in a minute. Hang on, let me mute. I'd love to see some of your stuff. You might not be able to post links, but if you post links, I can see it and I can always repost them. So I'd love to see your stuff. I'd love to see other people's crafty things. By the way, you can always hit me up on Instagram and Facebook and stuff as well. And show me and stuff, but I'd love to see it. Mainly because, I see my own stuff and it's kind of boring to me because, I made it. And I don't know what it looks like because, I made it. In fact, I usually designed each and every inch of it. Okay, well, to be honest, I think if you post it, it might automatically delete. Yeah, it does automatically delete it and it didn't show me. Hang on. Yeah, it didn't even show me that. Even I didn't get to see that, which is a bit unusual because normally it shows me and not you. Yeah, it didn't show me that at all. Send me it as a message. Send me it as a DM message and I can go and have a look. You can see it. I can't. Oh, Twitch doesn't let you use the messages. That's a bit annoying. As I say, it's usually quite weird because normally as a moderator I would see the URL, but the rest of the stream people wouldn't. And it hasn't put it in the auto mod queue. It's literally just start it out. Let me see if I can... let me see if I can... Oh, I would try and mute it, but that's not going to work. Pin that. Yeah, it's not... Yeah, it's not letting me see it. As I say, normally you can... I can see URLs even if Twitch doesn't share it with everybody else, but it's not even letting me share that. Well, that's just rude of it. If you follow my Instagram or... Okay, I'd imagine not. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Yeah, sorry about that. Didn't mean to do that. I've undone the timeout. You should be fine by now. So you should be able to talk now. But you should be able to send me direct messages. There's no reason why you... So I know some people have blocked people. I haven't blocked anyone from sending me messages. So everyone should be able to send me messages should the need arise. But as I say, that was kind of weird. I do know that it doesn't like URLs in the posting, which is fine. But I thought as a moderator I would normally see that. That's really annoying. And I'm very sorry, Naughty Cow. I didn't mean to do that to you. I feel really guilty now. As I say, it looked like a little eye in a circle, but it's not. And of course, as I held my mouse over it, it didn't give me an icon. It just kind of... It didn't give me a meaning to it. So I clicked it thinking it was information, and it because maybe it would tell me what was missing, and it timed you out. I feel really guilty now. Me not knowing the mod tools well enough, clearly. So I feel really bad now. That'll haunt me for a few days because I do want you to come back, and I do feel really bad about that. Hopefully it is because I undid the mod action. You should be good to talk. So, I don't know. Maybe it's going to ban you for 10 minutes anyway. I hope not. And now I feel really bad because you haven't said anything. And I think you're muted. And now you've gone. Perhaps. So yeah, now I feel guilty. And horrible. And I shouldn't. But I do. You're being so nice. Hopefully you will come back. See if I can... see if that helps. Typical. Scared off. I scared them off by my own stupidity. So frustrating. It's the problem when they make the wretched icons so tiny. I really thought it was an eye for information, and turns out it's a clock. What time is it? Nearly 11. Probably a good time to stop, to be honest. As I've got to go to work tomorrow. We didn't seem to do much, didn't seem to get very far, although we have talked about some great and glorious things. And I really hope Nauticelt will return so that we can see the rugs they make, because they sound nice. I like the sound of that. Because as I say, I could really use a nice rug mat thing, and if they do Celtic knots, that would be perfect. Plus, of course, I'd be helping out. I might, helping someone else feel good about that crafty stuff. So I'd like to do that. That doesn't seem right. Time for a hole. Somehow. One pin out. You need to move up a hole. This is going to be awkward. This is going to be awkward when I try and shuffle these up a hole. Because I missed a hole. Here, look. Pay me. So, lift this pin and move it over the hole. And then lift this pin. And not any of the other pins. Up and over a hole, and then lift this pin up and over a hole, and then this one up and over a hole, which is easy to do because, well, it is. These are going to look a little bit ropey because, well, they just are, because they're under a bit more tension than they wanted to be. But, there we go. Now it all makes sense. You're still there. Don't feel guilty. Good. It's okay. It's okay. I do apologise for timing you out, though. I really thought it was a little eye symbol, maybe to show me more information. And then, of course, it went, I've deleted all your messages, and they're timed out for 6 minutes, for 10 minutes. And I'm like, okay, we could use with a confirmation button on that kind of distractiveness, but it was too late. It's good. Oh, he wouldn't let you. Oh, that was mean. Really? Twitch is painful. I mean, I know they put a lot of these things in because, well, frankly, of all the spam bots. Couple of days ago, we had 5 spam bots in a couple of hours, and after all, I'm not exactly a big streamer. But there are times when I know that I've done things and they kind of go, what was I trying to do the other day? Oh, you need to respond to this email. Well, if you sent me it, I would, but it's not in my spam bin. I have access to the raw server because it's run between me and a friend, and so it never came. You're not trying to send it to me. I would respond to the email to confirm, only you are not sending it. And so, sometimes you just sit there going, well, I would, but I can't. That is just not humanly possible. To worry not too much about the Twitch thing. As I say, if you find, I put a link to my Instagram and Threads. If you find me on there, you are very welcome, because I'd be very interested in potentially having to buy one of your rugs, to be honest. So that would be a thing. That could be a good thing. You're a bit wobblier than I'd like, thank you. In fact, you're far too wobbly. I don't like you at all. Why are you wobbly? Let's put you in at a very jaunty angle then. That's a bit better. Oh, you don't use Instagram? Well, you're on Facebook. If you look on Facebook for Liz Kimber, you will find my icon on Liz Kimber. That is me, because my icon is Charlie the dog. He is not my current dog, but he was one of my former dogs. So, as you've said, you're on Facebook. Feel free to hit me up on Facebook. Send me messages or whatever on Facebook. That can be a thing. That can be a good thing. There are quite a few Liz Kimbers apparently on Facebook, but as I say, only one of me with that icon. So, and that is me. You are very welcome to send messages, and we can talk about your rugs and stuff, because that would be good. I'd like that. You have a spaniel. Yeah. Charlie was spaniel bearded collie cross. Both his parents were pedigrees, and so Charlie was a very beautiful boy. Absolute nutcase, but he was a very beautiful boy. I currently have, let me quickly show you. Hang on. Where's my window gone? Here we go. I currently have these two. Who are beautiful and best and well behaved when they're asleep and not farting. Because they currently sleep. Seriously, if I could show you a picture. You've got to see this. There is no. This has got to be seen to be believed. This is. To get that to myself, the easiest way to get it to myself. I know how to get it to myself, I think. It's really hard sometimes to get a thing from your phone to your PC, because I don't have email on my PC because I don't really read it there. Let me do this. Let me send it to there and go off and get it in another window. I don't blame you, to be honest. I really, really don't. Let me do this, and then we'll open it in Paint. Get rid of that one, and go to the folder, and open it with Paint, and then I have to shrink it a bit because it is a little bit big. Do that, and then go to this, and that's picked it up. this is what I'm currently sitting next to. So Amy's at the top using the pillow. I've then got the anti-fart pillow at her other end, which is the one I've made. And Rory is bent round with his head stuck up the side of the sofa, being an absolute silly. Snoring. So, yes, this is... yeah, I can imagine... Twitch does like people to have phone numbers, even though I've said in my settings I don't care whether you've got phone verification or not, because I don't want my phone number everywhere. I don't want these weirdos having my phone number. Yeah, no offence. I've seen some of the people out on the internet. I don't want them having my phone number. So I do understand entirely the whole not doing that. Sadly, I work in IT and I've actually technically got 2 phones because, well, basically in an hour's time I'm on call. So I have to have a phone because that's a work phone. And then, well, my work friend, kind of who's been a bit quiet today actually, it's a little bit worrying, usually texts me like 5 times an hour. So I need my own phone. What 2 dogs have you got at the moment? My 2 are quite young, fortunately. They're 4 years old, they're brother and sister. So they're 4, so they should have a good number of years in them yet. Although if they don't stop fighting, I'm not so sure. But every so often we will have death battles, and there's blood. And one day I'll be out when they have their death battles, and they would take it too far. I think he starts it and she finishes it usually, but so yeah, I got these 2 in 2020 during the joyous lockdown, because one of my dogs died rather suddenly, and I didn't want the remaining dog that I had to be on her own. But she'd been living for a good 5 years with cancer, not supposedly going to last 6 months. And as I say, 5 years later, there she was. She did last nearly a year after getting these 2 before she felt she had her last day, and we honoured her decision. But I am currently of 2 nuttiness dogs. I think as they get older, I'll probably find a 3rd, so that it won't be just me and nobody again, because that would be awful. I haven't not had a dog and lived on my own now for quite a while. I've always had a dog, although at one point I had 4 and it was a little bit much. I'm a person. Personally, I believe that 1 dog per hand in available household is the maximum number of dog. So as a person living alone, 2 is kind of it. You can make 3 if some of the other dogs are elderly stroke, just kind of walking cushions and don't really do anything. But if they're a little bit more excitable, you kind of need to be able to have 1 hand per grabbing of dog. No. Well, they're making good age. My father was blessed at not very long life dogs. They generally barely made it into double figures. I've got a friend who is of a similar kind of nature, although she tends to have pedigree dogs, and pedigree dogs never live long. You had 10. Oh, blimey. I feel better now. I do feel so much better now. I wouldn't mind. I mean, to be honest, if a dog turned up on my doorstep looking sorry, I would take it in. I'm a sucker. The only reason I've only got 2 is because I've only got 2. If they'd come as a group of 4, I probably would have said yes to that and all. But what happened is when Fiona died in 2020, I approached a charity and kind of went, I need a bit more dog. And they kind of went, well, we've got a lurcher. And I kind of went, yeah, I can do a lurcher. Or we've got this one. Yeah, I could do that too. Or we've got puppies. Now, it is hard to say no to puppies. We all know that. especially when presented with a picture of a little tiny brown puppy and a little black puppy. And from the picture, now bear in mind, they were sitting in the guy's hands, so all you could really see was the faces. And they could only have been 10, 11 weeks old. Well, they weren't even 3 months old. They were less than that. So they were really quite young at that point. I knew the brown one was female. I knew the black one was male. And so I wrote back, the brown one's female and the black one's male, isn't it? And she kind of went, yes. I went, can I have both? And she went, well, yes. So I did. Unfortunately, they were in Romania, and I didn't know that when I decided to have them. Which obviously wouldn't have been my first choice, because we've got plenty of dogs in dogs' homes over here. We don't really need to import some more. But at the same time, the only thing I do regret was their journey here. I'm not going to say they had a good time in the shelter there, because, well, dogs don't have a good time in shelters anywhere, but certainly something transpired that they remember, especially him. And so I don't know what it was, but he encountered something, because he is quite scared when he is sleeping. And if I was to touch his bottom right now, he would almost wake up, teeth and ready to kill, and 9 times out of 10 goes for her. So obviously something happened to him when he was a puppy, and the journey here, they spent 72 hours in a crate. They had to go to the bathroom in the crate, so the crates were stacked 3 tall. They were in the middle, so they got to poop and pee on someone below them, but they got pooped and peed on. So they were sopping wet when I got them, and they stank like nothing else. They were absolutely petrified. It was almost like some form of human smuggling ring, except for dogs, right? Is that I knew they were coming on a van. I knew that I was a certain point in the list. And at about, I think it was about 2 o'clock, we're in Bristol. Now, I'm only an hour's drive from Bristol, so how bad can it be? 4:30 in the morning. It took them 14 hours to get from Bristol to here. I don't know what they were doing, walking. Well, obviously not. But when he got here, he couldn't find my road, because, of course, it was dark. And literally, he went in the back, got 2 dogs, kind of shoved them in our arms and drove off. And it was under the cover of darkness. It was not a good thought. And I bought them in, and I'd bought off Amazon a big, like 10-metre circumference pen. So they had a big pen, and the idea being I would limit any potential damage, shall we call it, to the pen. They screamed. It was not whiny, oh, I don't really want to. No, they screamed. They cannot go in cages, to the point when I got them neutered. The vets called, and they've never called that early, and it was, you need to come and get your dogs. Because they couldn't stay in, and as I pulled in the car park, I could hear them. They were screaming because they were in a cage. And they needed them out of there because it was upsetting everybody. And it was kind of like, yeah, I can see that. So they do not do cages, and I'm not a fan of crate training to an extent, but I did intend to kind of do it with these 2. But not after that. Can't. Just couldn't. So my house took a bit of a hit. Because, well, they didn't really do English. They didn't know their names. They didn't know anything. Even though I'd named them and they'd been apparently called by their names, and I'd had a couple of videos and things. But of course they'd been in shelters, so they weren't trained or anything. And they were scared of everything. And as I say, it took 72 hours to drive here. And that was just not how I would want that to start. And although it was 4 years ago, the end of the month, in fact, because it was Halloween. But I just feel very sorry for them. And so I almost couldn't tell them off for a while because they were just too scared. If you so much as breathed funny, they were scared. So you couldn't tell them off. Crates do save lives, but at the same time, I don't go out, so they don't need to go in a crate because I'm never gone. I've also fortunately got a double garage with nothing in it, and it's got a rubber floor, and they're happy in there if I do have to go somewhere. But this is the thing: crates can be good, but it also it depends on the dog, and because they're traumatised by crates would not be right for them. Crates are a more recent thing in terms of dog care, if you know what I mean. And so very early dogs that I had, crates just weren't even really a consideration. And then I adopted maturer dogs who hadn't been crate trained and weren't interested in crate training, so it's never really been a thing. My neighbours, however, got dogs a couple of weeks before I got these two, and they did crate train them, and it worked very well because that's what they're used to. But these two just are too scared to go into crates. And so I don't want to force it because they're just too scared. They scream, and that wouldn't be right either. I mean, even if I've got a couple of places where I've used a bit of the pen. So I've got one in front of the TV, in front of the phone cable so that the internet doesn't go down. I've got one in my weaving room so that the dogs don't go herring in and out of the door through the loom or whatever, so it stops them running around. They just won't go anywhere near it. They will not go anywhere near it. And that's just by having a panel resting against a door. They won't go near it. So they're too scared for that. So I don't make them because I want them to be happy. But as I live alone and I work from home, and my car's been dead for at least 2.5 months now, maybe longer. I don't know when it died actually. That's how often I go out. So I think I went out in early August when I had to go to the hospital for a checkup. It's the last time I went out. In fact, last night, going out and talking to my co-worker and his family in the car, that was probably more out than I've had in a number of months. So I am a creature of solitude by choice. I'm quite happy with it. There are times that I wish occasionally that I didn't have to go and get a drink, that someone will go, would you like a cup of tea? Yes, I would. Or would you like me to cook tea? That would be fabulous. But I live alone, so I have to do it all myself. That's fine. I'm cool with that. It's part of the deal. So yes, I don't object to it really. When I'm sick, then that's the only time I wish I wasn't alone. Sometimes when I was sick, and it would be nice if someone else would, make a cup of tea, or like last week when I did my back in and I couldn't really walk, sit, stand, or do anything without screeching a lot. It would have been nice, but it's really only the would have been nice category. It's not essential. So it is cool. I am happy enough in my own skin to live alone. So they don't really need crates because I'm not really never here. They've got their favourite spots. I enhanced one spot earlier and they're very grateful for that. Right, let's push you out the way because we finished with you for a while. We finished with all of you for a while. So, one of the biggest problems with this is that you can't cover up too much, but you also can't cover up enough. Because ideally you'd cover the pins, because then the things can't get stuck on the pins. But you can't really cover the pins. So, next up we need to do the rose ground section. We really really doesn't feel like I've got very far today. Doesn't really feel like I got very far at all. Actually, I made a mistake, I think. Because this comes out of that. There seems to be a pair missing. Oh, arse. Please don't say that. Please don't say I made a mistake all the way back at the top. There may be, it may just be how it looks. Yeah. I didn't, but I did, if that makes sense. Yeah, sounds about right. These two, I can't remember why. As I say, if I do go out, I normally put them in the garage where they've got toys, bed, and a rubber floor, and quite a lot of space, and everything else up out the way. For some reason, I must have left them in the house to nip out and do something. And Rory managed to shut the kitchen door, so he destroyed that. That was definitely an issue. I have made a mistake, but I fortunately made 2 mistakes. Now, what do I mean by I made the mistake? Let me zoom in a bit. Oh no, that is zoomed in. Oh dear. Where's my crochet hook? This will be the best pointiness. This pin here should have a pair of bobbins off it, like its pins, like these 2 bobbins from this pin. So this pin should have 2 bobbins coming on it, which would normally feed this. But it doesn't. But what by fortune, it's right, hooked on something. But tangled bobbins, hang on. Let me sort out a bit of tangled bobbin first. These 2 should have gone in and come out. So what I can do is cheat and steal this thread with the hook up through the hole, slide this bobbin through it, like this, and out again, and then unhook it from the 300 pins that it's decided to mate with along the way. So do this, and suddenly, ta-da! Now I haven't screwed it up. So that's a good thing. So, minor faux pas, but one that was easily fixable. Charlie, bless his little furry face, Charlie was a very destructive lad when he was a puppy. He would very much have benefited from crate training, but again, he was very scared of crates, so was not an option. But he ate the kitchen floor, the dining room floor, the hallway floor, the wall between the dining room and the hallway, the wall between the hallway and the downstairs toilet, basically every PlayStation game we ever owned, all the post that arrived for nearly 5 years, half the garden, the wall between the dining room and the kitchen, as I remember filling that one in with polyflare. I became really good at decorating, because my polyfiller technique is really up there now, thanks to Charlie, because I had to fill in many holes. My ex-husband did fill in one hole, and it looked a bit like kind of royal icing, frankly, done by a You know when they do like the peaky wavy things? Yeah. Yeah. In general use, they are used for more finishing and joining techniques, not correcting faux pas. But in this case, because in essence, that was kind of all these threads did, which was go round the pin and come out again, I could cheat and it will not be that obvious. Normally what you do is, for sake of the argument, if there was going to be, like if you were making a kind of a loop, for want of a better word, as it comes round, you would make a join, and there is many kinds of styles of joins. And in fact, if I go internet splunking for some pictures, that's not going to be, they're not the pictures I want. Let me find one of something vaguely along the lines of what I want. Have you ever noticed when you want to find something you can't? Oh, it needs a space in it. Yeah, that'll do. So, let me show you this picture here. I need to get back here, transition. So if you look, you can see like in the picture, there is like an outside edge, and then lots of little fronds that go to the kind of little stars that make the next layer round. Well, what you do is obviously some of the fronds don't happen until later, so you don't do the inside, you don't do the outside, maybe you do the inside bit first, and then, but you don't necessarily make all the fronds then and there. You only make some of them. Some of them you make coming back the other way, and so you've got work to join to, and that's how you do the join, is you shove. You can get fancy tools with a bent needle and you put a bit of thread through it and then you pull the thread, or you can use a crochet hook. But obviously crochet hooks have a disadvantage. You have a disadvantage of the size of the head, and if the thread's too small and the pins are too small, you can't get your hook through the hole. So the blunt end of the needle with a thread through it is sometimes the preferred method, and you can get benty pins for that specific task. I've got one somewhere, but not right here. The only tool I have over here it's part of the set of them, but I have my hole stabbing device, because if I take the end off, it's actually a needle. If I can, it's not going to focus on it very well. So it's actually a needle. But this is my pricking device. I've got various attachments for it, and one of them is the bent needle. But it's not here, it's in my box, but I have my trusty crochet hook, and so I use that. Are you trained in motor vehicle repair as well? Excellent. Thanks to Charlie, I probably could do really quite well at that too, because, as I say, when Trev filled in the downstairs toilet wall, it kind of looked a bit more like trampled sand, shall we call it? And eventually, even though we painted it, it still looked like dog's dinner. So one day I thought, well, I must be able to do better than this, after I went and helped a friend who, for some reason, was remaking the corner of a wall in his house, and I helped him make a really cracking, good right angle edge to that, and we did a cracking job. So I felt slightly inspired to go home and fix a few of the bits in my own house, and I bought a big tub of polyfiller, and I did. To be honest, you would not know that Charlie had basically eaten his way through our walls. Although, I don't know about you, but my old house and this house are fairly, let's call them modern builds, in that they were made in the last 100 years. My last house, I don't know about this one, I assume this one's the same. Straw walls. Now, first thing, I don't know about you, but the moment someone says to you straw walls, all I can think of is three little pegs. Now, I know that they are treated and compressed and blah, 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 but they're straw walls. Well, Charlie ate the straw wall. But yeah, I really, Rory, someone may have, I'm sure you can get in if you wanted. I bet you if I rustled a food wrapper, you would get through that door. I have a special contraption for my back door. So I have patio doors. See, you can get in. Oh no, it was little miss. Sorry, Rory, you're behind me. I have. Oh, you've got a nice old house. Oh, I do envy that. About the same age as my dad's old house. This house was built in 2007. The last one was the 1980s. But I've got a contraption for my patio doors here. So I have two patio doors with no bar in the middle. Hurrah. So you can get wide things in through the door. But, well, as we all know, it's kind of rapidly heading to winter and coldness and rain. So leaving the door open is not really a plan. But the dogs need to go out. And getting up, getting down, getting up, getting down, getting up, getting down. My life is short enough without me getting up and getting down a lot. So I leave the door pulled to, and I have an automatic door pulling to device, and then I have like a little buffer thing that stops it actually shutting. And so they can go in and out as they please while I'm awake. And this is very liberating, frankly, because all dog owners will tell you, the moment barely your butt cheeks have touched the sofa, they want to go out again, or they want to come back in again, or the other one wants to go out, or the other one wants to come back in, or they're not sure. They want to go out and stare vaguely and then turn round again. Especially the colder it is, the more likely they are to do it, it seems. So not having to command the door is a very valuable thing. And this little doory pulley thing, I did have to find the exact right spot for it so that it pulled the door to, but not so hard that it slammed the door, but hard enough that it didn't just blow open in the wind. So obviously if there's a kind of hurricane type thing going on, then it'll probably blow the door open. But it generally doesn't, because it's fairly well close to the house. And so it is one of the best things I have ever bought for this house, is the ability to not have to get up and let the dogs in and out. Because we're an indecisive pair, and we don't like to go out if there's weather. So if it's windy, rainy, or both, no, I'd rather not, thank you. Basically, unless it was bright and sunny, they're not overly interested. They are getting better in that earlier today when the rain was coming down in stair rods, she opened the door and kind of went, oh my God, that's disgusting out there. I'm not going there. Immediately snuck back. She literally poked her nose out. It got like half an inch out and she went, oh no. Pulled her head back in. And you could see her going, I need to go out. I'm going to go out. I'm going to get it done with. And I'm going to be back as soon as humanly possible. And then she just kind of fled out in the garden and was back again in a few seconds. Clearly doing what she had to. She had to psych herself up, poor little girl. So she is getting better about the whole going out in the garden thing, which is good. But it also means that in times like that, it's not me having to get up again. So I do like my door puller. I am going to stop for today because, well, it's 11:30 and I've got work in the morning. Oh, happy days. And I probably will be back tomorrow evening because I want to get on with this. Because we are not quite halfway, but we're getting there. Because obviously, if I use my safety pin as a ruler, this is technically halfway, so we've only got a little bit to go. And at halfway, we could call it quits and say, we've done an eighth of the square, we can decide whether we like it or not. I did do another quarter, where I did do a slight variance on the one that went before, the original square that I did. Can't remember what difference I did mine, but I'd have to look to see. What was the square? Let's see. Let me quickly look back through my list of stuff. Take my glasses off because I see better without my glasses on my phone. And as always, can I see it for looking? So there's the square. So, previously I did rose ground in... Let me zoom out. So, I did this rose ground here. I did the original honeycomb in this bit and like solid mini squares here. And it was pretty enough. There's nothing wrong with that. But I felt that the little squares in the middle were a bit much. So I'd done a whole quarter of that, and I probably should do a quarter of this, but the spangles are driving me mad. So I don't know. I probably will do the full quarter to get a better idea. So we've got a few more days of this yet. Apparently my co-worker did send me a text message. I knew it was too quiet. Of course they sent me a text message. Admittedly, it was a picture of someone's front door upside down with the quote of, "People called me an idiot. I did it so my dogs could see out." How cool's that? That's a really good idea, because, you know. Anyway, it's been nearly 4 hours. I will copy this up to YouTube, for those who catch it on the YouTube. And we shall be back tomorrow, hopefully. Nautical, it has been a pleasure and an honour chatting with you today, and it's so nice to talk to someone different. Please hunt me down like a dog and on Facebook, and I would love to see your mats, because I'm seriously obsessed with Celtic squares. In fact, I wanted to try and do Celtic knot effect as part of my let curtain. If I could have done it in one piece and braved the 8 million bobbins, I would be making ground stitch with a fake Celtic knot contraption in the middle, because I really like Celtic knots. So I would love to see your mats, and discuss the potential of purchasing one. So yes, it would be great to talk to you, and it would be nice to see you again. But you have a couple of things on YouTube as well. Excellent. Bombard me as much information as you can. I will happily watch it. I'm not going to pretend I'm watching. I'm not going to. I will not admit that I will look at it during work hours tomorrow, because I probably will. But I will look at it as soon as I am able, and probably not tonight if you do it tonight. But I shall return, and I hope that I meet with you some more, and that we have many more conversations in the future, because, well, dogs and crafting and stuff. Hello, Amy. Yes. Amy has decided that she wants a hug. Yes. Yeah. You're very much loved, but now's not the time. Go on. Off you go for a minute. So yes, until the next time, which hopefully will be tomorrow after work. Can't really stream during work. That would be somewhat taking the mick of my employer. That, and I do actually have work to do, so, you know, finding time during work time would be awkward. Channel's the same name. I shall hunt you down. So yes, I shall be back. Oh, braids. I like braids too. I shall be back tomorrow. You do realise that braids is really all lace making is. Cheers, frankly. Glass stitch repeated is a full plait braid. That's it. That's what it is. It's really not that hard. So I shall be back tomorrow. Sometime, probably not at 4 o'clock when I get off work, because I will want to stretch my legs and hug the dogs and run around the field a little bit first. But I will be back tomorrow, and we shall continue this, and it will be good to see people if they are available to come, because obviously it will be a bit later in the day again, so some of the American people will have a little bit more, well, coffee inside them before they want to come. But yes, I look forward to seeing you another day. It's all rope mats and Celtic knots. Oh yeah, I know. Many of these things have great similarities. You just use ropey bits. I use stupidly fine threads. And have sticks to hold them because, well, they're dainty. So yes, I hope to see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Bye.